Hello, how are you doing?
Not bad. I'm exhausted. I've been doing 9/11 stuff all day.
Have
Same
you?
here.
Yeah, yeah. Of
Mhm.
course, because you've got so much of the information, and you've been doing these interviews quite some time. So, thank you very much for making time for us here in Alberta, Canada. We're really, really intrigued into having this conversation again, and we are looking for truth. So, there's no limits here. We're not on YouTube. You can say whatever you want. You can talk about the election, the
Oh,
vaccine, if
good.
that's necessary.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
There's no
Yeah,
restrictions.
that too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And sure, that's in some way they're all related. So yeah, no hesitation on where you want to go with this. And this is exactly what we're looking for, especially the stuff that would have gotten us kicked off of YouTube. Let's hear it. Let's hear it for sure. Um,
Well, that would be anything to do with Israel or Saudi Arabia,
all right.
because
Well,
that will definitely get you thrown off of YouTube in seconds.
all right. Well, we're not there. We're on Facebook, but we haven't had any trouble with Facebook. We've been pretty good there. So,
Ooh, you're on Meta. Mm.
but
Well,
we're also on Rumble and we're on X as well. So we should be able to stay up somewhere. And we're also on
Rumble's
Enter.
fine, and X should be fine, but I don't know about Meta. I might want to turn. You may want to turn that off.
Well, we've got the audience there right now, and you know what? Let's roll with the dice on this one. They've been good to us so far. We've had Dr. Peter McCullough on, we've had Macus on, we've had Chris Shoemaker on. So we've had some pretty in-depth conversations around vaccines. We haven't gotten into Israel or Saudi Arabia or those issues yet, but we certainly touched on the ones that got me banned off of YouTube. Like I haven't kicked off of YouTube, but not Facebook yet. But with that
Yeah,
said, I don't
it's
mind. I
not
don't mind
hard.
rolling.
It's not hard to get kicked off YouTube. I mean, if you say anything about the Branch Covidiots or election fraud or any nuanced opinion on the Ukraine war, there's like a million mines in the minefield on YouTube that can get you thrown off.
Yeah, and also stating the case that a prosecution has for a police officer in Ottawa, just stating their case, not even talking about the defense, was enough to get me striked. So we didn't even have an opinion. We were just stating the news. That was enough. That was
All right,
enough.
do you know Jeremy McKenzie?
Very well.
He's part of, yeah, good. Yeah, you're in Diagolon, man. You're in Alberta.
I'm not in
Or the,
Niagara, but literally just on the.
I mean you missed the line then.
Yeah, yeah, I can see them in the distance, and I'm a supporter of the general idea of Diagonal, and a lot of great people. You're going to see them in the chat. Our clip guy is Island Jason. He's an amazing man, and I've made lots of friends with that community. And Jeremy's certainly one of them. Morgan's one of them as well. Good people there. Good people there. But yeah, and Jeremy's one of the ones that reached out when he saw that I was having you on. He said, "There's a truth teller right there. That's pretty good that you got him." So I'm excited to have you on. Now, Ryan, why don't we go ahead and let people know who you are? You do have quite the following, but let's let everybody know who you are, if you don't mind.
Well, I used to have quite the following, but after getting banned on everything, I've had to start over. Fortunately, I got my Twitter return this year, like a lot of people, and so I've been
Mm-hmm.
slowly climbing up the ladder again, but it is frustrating. It sucks to put in 20 years and then just get erased. And but yeah, I started maybe around 2000 or so, I guess, was my online presence. And I guess what really put me on the map was working on 9/11. That's why you have me on today, wearing my
Mm-hmm.
Remember the Liberty shirt, by the way.
Oh, nice.
But
Thank you.
I cover all manner of geopolitics, and you really can't talk about September 11th without also mentioning the Iraq War, because
Mm-hmm.
they associated 9/11 to Iraq, even though they had nothing to do with September 11th. And so that bogus war, and everyone knows there were no WMDs now, but I don't think they really piece it together, and they don't understand how it was intricately tied to September 11th. But I can build those bridges for people.
Please do. Please do. Now, we say Iraq War, there's even one before that. So Bush Sr. had his own as well. Does it go back
Yeah, I
that
mean
far as
the
well?
second one. Well,
Right.
yeah,
I'm just seeing
obviously
if
the
there's a
first war
connection
is,
even further.
well, it's the same people. Obviously, the first one is before 9/11, but it's the same people that were not satisfied with the first Iraq War. They didn't think he finished the job because they didn't
Mm.
assassinate Saddam. And so, yeah, it was the same kind of ilk that wanted that war, wanted the second war.
Is
They
it
wanted a
pretty?
lot of wars actually afterward. They wanted to keep on going into Iran and everything else. It just didn't work out too well, the first or the second Gulf Wars.
Is it simple or easy to say that there maybe was a lot of reasons for them to do it? Like we hear oil a lot of the time, we hear money, rebuilding the country, a whole bunch. But is it safe to say there's a bunch of reasons that led to this?
It wasn't oil. That's
Okay.
not for America anyway. It wasn't Americans that got the oil. Israel ended up with 3/4 of its oil coming out of Iraq, but that didn't benefit the United States. They already had the oil for food program, so that didn't matter to them. And you can look at the import exports of Iraqi oil, and it doesn't really change after the war from before the war. Actually, less oil came in 2004 than in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty stupid to go to war for oil and end up with less oil than before.
Well, you
It
didn't say
was,
they're intelligent.
well, they were not fighting for oil. They're fighting, if you look at each pre-war lie to Iraq, it's about WMDs, and the people writing them are not oil companies or military industrial complex profiteers. The people writing about them are Israeli Zionists. They created an office within an office called the Office of Special Plans to cherry pick and fabricate information in the Pentagon, lying about Iraq, specifically about anthrax, VX gas, mobile weapons labs, chemical weapons under the palaces. You can trace this back to individuals. William Safire wrote about the chemical weapons in the New York Times. William Safire. Judith Miller's lying about aluminum tubes, which could be outfitted for missiles that they think could hit Israel. You have Douglas Feith and Richard Pearl and Paul Wolfowitz and Louis Leibowitz. Is a common thread among these people. They're all Israeli Zionists, and that is who's writing about this. They even started a think tank called Project for New American Century with a media outfit run by, or is founded by, Robert Kagan and William Crystal, and Robert Kagan's wife, Victoria Nuland. She's one of the architects of the Ukraine war. And they just spit out one lie after another about Iraq, including associating them to 9/11 by saying that Iraqi officials passed anthrax to Mohammed Atta in Prague. That never happened. They lied. James Woolsey lied. His sources for that was Israeli security forces. So the Israelis lied to us and said that Iraq gave anthrax to Al-Qaeda. And it was assumed in the very beginning that Al-Qaeda sent anthrax letters to U.S. senators. They didn't. It was domestic, and we know it was domestic because it's genetically traced back to labs in Fort Detrick.
Yeah, I heard
And
that.
so that people will say all kinds of stuff about oil and petrodollar and whatever, had nothing to do with that. Saddam Hussein was not about to get off the dollar. By the way, states get on and off the dollar all the time. Japan did it, India did it, nothing happened. It doesn't matter. It's just,
So it's a bit of a boogeyman.
it's very frustrating because the war for oil crowd, it fits a world narrative of like corporations, bro, and stuff. But you have to look at the details, and if you look at the specifics about who lied about Iraq, it's a bunch of Israelis, and they wrote this out in policy papers before they did it. They had the Oded Yanon plan on Iraq, which outlined how to create sectarian violence to foster it on purpose to get Kurd, Shia, and Sunni to kill each other. You had the Israeli clean break papers that the road to Damascus leads through Baghdad. And they were leading into war in Syria. I mean, this is a grand plan from Israeli strategists. Then you have a bunch of Israelis that formed a secret group in the Pentagon that turned out a bunch of lies that were put in an Israeli think tank in an Israeli media outfit. Come on. And then Israel gets 3/4 of the oil from Iraq. Iraq was a threat to Israel, not the United States. Oil is like, it's like everyone thinks war is like, oh, they did it for this resource, for gold, for oil, for this, for that.
Well, I think that's the easy way to explain it.
It is for plebs, but it doesn't match the evidence. It's something that, hoi polloi, peons, retarded people. You know, Democrats. No.
Gotcha.
No, simpletons.
We call them liberals here,
just,
but
yeah, that's a nice word, I guess. Nicer way to put it. I'm ending a stream right now. It's going to be 12 hours trying to multitask here.
Well, thank you very much for doing it.
I thought I'd be able to find the file real easy, but it's there's too many 9/11 things on my computer, so I'm trying to mess with this. Sorry, guys, watching on Rumble, but
It's all good. It's all good. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll get a secret video we weren't supposed to see pop up. Who knows?
I should have made it clearly named part 3 or something, but I don't know. Let's see. There's 2.2. Dang it. This sucks. I thought
It's
I
all
had
good.
it. Yeah.
It's all good.
I just need to set that up, and then I got like 2 hours like clear where I can go through things.
No problem. I'll ask a couple of questions while we're doing that. One question was, what's the significance of the bell? You hit a bell at one point there. You said a
Oh
name
yeah,
and then you hit someone's bell.
yeah. So it's like anytime since we're not on any of the things, anytime I talk about a Jewish neocon or something, I have this habit of hitting a bell because on people do clip things. If you stick anything on YouTube or any of the sort of woke media, you're not allowed to say the J word in any context at all. It doesn't matter if you're just being descriptive or whatever. And I think it does matter to point it out because if all these guys were Chinese, you probably would assume, gee, maybe the state of China has something to do with this. If you're all North Korean, you would think, hey, oh, I found the file, great. Maybe North
Cool.
Korea has something to do with this. So when you have a bunch of Jewish Zionists, it's not a giant leap to understand that, gee, maybe the state of Israel has something to do with this. Because if it's not the state of Israel, then you just think, I don't know, Jews just genetically lie about shit for no reason. Like, obviously, it's Israel. It's not because of their DNA or something. It's because they
No,
have
the
an
state.
identity politic that identifies with the state of Israel. Real politic is dead. America doesn't do things for its national interests. It does things for select commercial interests. But there's also, for the Israelis, they have a national interest, and commercial interests are almost inseparable because that entire state was created by organized crime and mafia anyway.
Do you want to get into the creation of the Israeli state? Kind of give some people some history on that.
Yeah, I
Do you think
mean,
it's
not only
relevant?
it's relevant. I mean, I have a film called NUMEC, which stands for the Nuclear Materials and Equipment Corporation, detailing how Israel stole highly enriched uranium from the United States. And in that, I have another film called The Parasite: How Terrorists Formed a Nation. You can see that the entire Israeli state was born out of a bunch of criminals. Menachem Begin, who was a terrorist, Ben Gurion, who was a terrorist, Ergun, Stern Gang, the Haganah and Palmach that ends up becoming, and the Jewish agency. It's full of mobsters. Mickey Cohen, Mo Dowlitz, Hank Greenspun, known mafioso in the United States and Canada, end up becoming the primary donors to or even embodied the Israeli government. 6 Israeli prime ministers came straight out of Haganah terrorist groups, including their first one, Ben Gurion. It's the anti-Zionist or just normal Jew never had a chance because the Brits and the Americans backed and financed the extremists, and if not, at least looked the other way. Because one of the tricks these people did is they laundered money through Holocaust charities, and it was just political suicide to prosecute a Holocaust charity
Anybody?
right after
Right.
World War. Yeah, because it was like
Yep.
you better be right because it's just too much of an emotional scar, and it had been used to denazify Germany and da 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 da. And so it was just this untouchable thing. And so criminal groups, if you find some untouchable thing, they're gonna milk that all day. And they were running
Mhm.
guns, money, and everything through these different Holocaust charities. That's just one of the tricks they did. They would get there's a you have to understand right after World War II, there's this huge surplus of weapons that are no longer needed because you
Right.
had half the world fighting each other. It ended, and then what do you do with all these small arms and stuff? Well, a lot of it ended up in Latin America and the Middle East. There's a couple places that hadn't been involved that want to buy the weapons, and the WAA is supposed to decommission these weapons, but see, at the same time, right after the war, gets straight into Korea, the Korean War, and this giant Cold War between the Soviet Union
Mm-hmm.
and the United States. You could say the United States and like Western Europe. Western Europe had been decimated. Germany's getting carved up into East and West Germany. U.S. is trying to justify nuking civilian cities. which is not totally unnecessary because they surrendered on the exact same terms they had offered earlier. So it's completely pointless. But the Soviets and the United
Let's get that
States.
correct. So Japan offered terms before they got nuked,
Oh yeah,
and the same terms were still agreed to.
Japan. They actually elected a new government in April for the sole purpose of surrendering to the United States. They did not want a North and South Japan in the same way there was a East and West Germany. And they did not want to surrender to communists. They're like, well, if we're going to throw it in,
Right, and
it'll
that's
be
from the
the
north from
American.
Russia. They were coming down.
They had promised to come in 3 months after the surrender of Germany, which would have been in August, which is when the U.S. nukes them twice, August 6th and 7th.
Hmm.
And
So
Nagasaki wasn't even a target. It was just the weather didn't let them hit what they thought. Anyway, that's a side thing, but there was no point because they're like, all they asked for is leave the emperor alone, which they did anyway. So the real
well,
reason
there
for
was
nuking was to flex on the Soviets
right,
to say, look at
exactly right.
the Yalta conference, we know what it was. But anyway, that's going on, and so both of them they set up. They had also right after war, you had these massive intelligence agencies that never seen to that scale. I mean, Britain sort of had one in the First World War, but the OSS of the United States is a baby. It becomes the CIA. And one of their main purposes to exist after the war wasn't just counterintelligence and spying on getting information. It was tracking weapons proliferation. You had this huge surplus. It makes massive black markets. People are selling guns, and not just guns, like machine guns for airplanes, tanks, anything you could move was being moved. So they take them apart, send all the parts, reassemble it, all that kind of stuff is going on. And the weapon above all weapons that they have to keep track of is the nuclear bomb and highly enriched uranium. And the Israelis stole all the above. And one of the things that was going on is we go down to Nicaragua, for example. Guatemala was another one. And they would use them as a third party. So maybe the Export Control Acts didn't apply down there because what they were doing is they were weaponizing the anti-communist. So because they're fighting, the Soviets are doing the opposite. They're financing communists. So instead of preventing weapons proliferation, it was more managed. So if they're on your team, then you just look the other way and let it go, let them get it. And if they weren't on your team, then you would come down and say, hey, you can't send weapons here, oh, you stupid commies, whatever. Well, the Israelis took advantage of this because the anti-communists that would get all these weapons would then act as a third party that just as a middleman to send them to the Israelis or paying top dollar for it, or bribery and blackmail. And the Somoza dynasty is one of these families, two of them in a row, that were principals in gun running to Israel. And so when Iran-Contra happens, that's again for Israel. The Contra is fighting the Sandinistas. Why is the U.S. siding with the Contras? Because the Sandinistas overthrew Somoza, and Somoza was an ally of Israel. And they wanted to keep that relationship. That was one of the ways they were circumventing the weapons ban. Because Israel-Palestine is a hotbed. No one's supposed to be sending weapons, but the U.S. was through their intermediaries. And KTM in China, like all these anti-communists everywhere end up, the mafia set itself up as a middleman, knowing that they wouldn't be prosecuted, or that the top would never be prosecuted because the supply side was the anti-communists that the CIA was supporting. And so if you knock out their ability to sell, then they lose money and they lose power. So the mob would always set up as the second biggest fish, never be the biggest. If you're the second biggest, then they can't come after you.
Right, because they have a target already.
And when I say the mob, it wasn't that a bunch of Italians like you see on TV. There was a huge Italian mob, but when it came to gun running, that was the Israeli mafia, the Jewish mafia, some people call it. I like calling it the Israeli mafia. I don't really like saying Italian mafia either, but because it was ethnic Italians, but mostly from Sicily, and most of them have been born in the U.S. and Canada, so they were Americans, they were Canadians, but whatever, they spoke Italian, so I guess there's that, but whatever.
Well, they use their roots to tie them back to family ties, so they can know who everybody was, maybe.
Well, the thing is, that's another thing from World War II is the U.S. supported like Geovese and stuff. Some of the families that become the prominent five families in New York were supported during the war because it was opposition to Mussolini. They're trying to get the next largest power to go against Mussolini, and they needed, the Sicilians, they needed their support. Well, after the war, these guys became governors and mayors of towns and had a lot of clout. And so you end up with the state sponsorship of their compatriots in the US and Canada. And the same thing with Israel. The Jewish mafia gained, Jewish mafia is the Israeli state, but now they had a tax base that they could milk and then use the money to finance their criminal operations overseas. They've been doing that since the
tax base, and then the charities, global charities there too.
Oh yeah, and so much of that money that would sounds good. Oh, let's help the poor refugees from that didn't go to them. It went to the mob.
Look, we got a couple of comments here I want to bring to you. This is from Jeremy, actually. Raging Dissident. Rebel Rand, $5. Thank you, Jeremy. Please consider donating to Ryan's fund to remaster Empire Unmasked, where much of his content is covered in detail. I may not be where I am today. I guess he's saying he appreciates that. And he also follows that up with, there are few people you can find to listen to that are more. There are few people you can find to listen to that are more knowledgeable about this stuff than Dawson. When anybody asks me, I just refer them. So you got a supporter there in Jeremy McKenzie. So thank you there, Jeremy, for that $5 and letting us know
he's
that
talking about
a
5-hour documentary I did. It's this poster right here, Empire Unmasked, and we've raised almost 18,000, I think 17 and change out of 30 to remaster it because I made that whole movie on Windows Movie Maker by myself and narrated the whole thing.
Yeah,
I got all the I got all the FOIA requests and police documents and all that stuff. And, at the time, I'd made films before, but my films are mostly, you could almost like just listen to the audio and hear my information because I'm a researcher. I'm not a movie maker. But I'm like, no one's going to read this until there's a movie first because they're like, well, who's going to pick up a 600-page book and be like, what do I need this guy for? So, Loose Change was out, which was like the worst 9/11 film ever for a long time. And then they figured out a way to go even dumber. But I thought I have to counter this propaganda, this BS. So I made a movie. I made a movie called War by Deception. It was like 3 hours and 40 minutes. And that was on like pre-ADL YouTube. And so millions of people saw it.
I like the pre-ADL YouTube.
Yeah, that's what it was. Before Google bought it. Yep.
Yeah.
The day they partnered, I got banned off of YouTube completely.
Maybe they bought it just to get you off.
I think not just me, but they bought it to control. We can't let people like him and people like him talk. They'll spill the beans. Spill the beans is an expression that an FBI translator overheard Mark Grossman and Richard Pearl talking about the FBI's 9/11 suspects. They told them, we have to get these guys out of the country before they spill the beans. What? Why do you want to get FBI suspects, 9/11 suspects out of the country before they start talking? Don't you want them to talk? Don't you want to know who did 9/11?
Bring them to the left, right? We'll interrogate them.
Mark Grossman and Richard Pearl have a different team. So, but that shows they knew. It wasn't like, oh, I didn't know they did this. They knew. They were shielding them. So yeah, we can get into 9/11 itself. There's a lot of dumb stuff.
Let me put something into your mind here. Jeremy McKenzie's got 1,100 pages. That may change Canadian history. I don't know. Maybe there's some research that could be done there. You maybe want to reach out to him. He's got something going, something brewing. Somebody with your mind might be assistant.
Yeah, man, I'll help him with anything. It's I'm pretty sure I'm the one that red pilled him on 9/11, and a lot of people.
Sure. Well, he thinks highly of you, and he's working on something big right now.
Good. Well, he's paid the ultimate price. They put him in jail for no reason. I'm mad about it still. Everybody, they do this too. They jail people It's not as bad as maybe Julian Assange, and they've exiled people like Ed Snowden, and a lot of us have been debanked and canceled on everything. I know Germany's been blanket banned on just about everything. If I wasn't in Asia, I would have been thrown in jail. I know it.
Mm.
It's just because people are like,
Well,
why'd you go to Japan? I'm like, are you kidding me?
not the food. It's good, but it's not the food. Well, they're going after
Yeah,
Owen Schroeder
sushi.
now. Like you saw that.
I didn't know that. I believe it though. I mean,
Yeah,
they
they're
even
trying to
went
get 10 years on
after
him.
they went after Melonhead, and he used to work for them. And it's kind of like he pulled a Bill Cooper that day he went off script. I think they murdered Bill Cooper, and he said that summer. He said in June or July, that they're gonna blow up the World Trade Centers and blame it on Osama bin Laden. For
Yeah,
those
we've
who
had
don't
things
know,
like
that
that
was
here
a
in Canada
radio
too.
host. He was he used to be this Alex Jones kook type naval intelligence officer that would take real things that people were getting close to and just completely swerve it to go barking up the wrong tree by adding like UFOs and aliens or what, just nonsense to get you just lost and discredited. And for a long time, that's what Alex Jones would do: is he'd take something and then he'd be like, Larry Silverstein said, pull this industry term, blah, 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 and Luciferian, Illuminati, gay frog, whatever, and just
Mhm.
pour crazy all over it so that people are lost in the weeds and you can't cut through the ether stupid to get back to the kernel of truth that was buried under all the BS. But he went off script too and became a Trump pansy, and they hate Trump, and so they hate Alex, and so all they had to do was pick something. They went after his denial of Sandy Hook. He
Yeah,
was a
it's a
school
billion
shooting
dollar cost.
denier. I don't know if it should cost $1 billion, but he definitely did lie about it. And his followers, he also told people there was a tunnel under Comet Pizza and they were trafficking kids and all kinds of shit and earthquake machines and RFID chips in your money and just stupid stuff. But his followers went and set fire to that establishment. And he had David Icke on too. And these people running around setting 5G towers on fire because
Yeah.
they think it communicated with the graphene in your blood from the shot, and it doesn't. It just means fifth generation, same as 4G, a little bit different wavelength. Whatever, I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but like these people, their role is to kookify conspiracies, to make it like, ooh, the term conspiracy sounds like an eye-rolling, oh geez, tinfoil hat. You think Elvis is alive and the moon is made of
He's
cheese, like
not?
that level of dumb. Huh? No,
Elvis is
that
not
was
alive?
no.
I worked,
He's
yeah,
alive. His spirit, like he's alive, like the way like we remember him and all. But no, he's definitely all
yeah.
those drugs. Mm-mm.
Here in Canada, I used to work the Collingwood Elvis Festival. So it's the largest festival for Elvis impersonators in North America. Every
Nice.
year, there's a rumor that he's hiding in that crowd. Every year, somebody said, I assure you, I spoke to the real one.
It would be
But yeah,
fun. I mean, why not?
why not? Like if he was kicking around, that's where you're going to go. Collingwood, Ontario. It's a great
the
time.
the
Like,
only
they're real stars.
the only guy weird enough and with enough money to fake his death would have been Michael Jackson. I'm not saying he
And
did.
maybe
He didn't.
Tupac. And maybe Tupac.
But
I don't know. Maybe Tupac.
they had his corpse though. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was Interscope. That was Bloods were tied to Spooks too. That was Sumner Redstone that had him killed, and they're always like, "Oh, him and Biggie and blah blah blah." It would no. The record is like Kanye's right. That's all I'll say about record executives. Um, I don't want to get into that because I knew that story and all, but I haven't talked about Tupac forever, and so I don't want to.
Maybe we'll save that for a Rumble special.
I don't want to get
episode.
into that unless after I brush up on my notes because I used to know all the names and stuff, but I don't anymore.
What's
But
the anniversary? Chat, do you know the anniversary?
they gave immunity to one of these Bloods, and he's like, I have immunity, okay, and he said I did everything. he didn't do anything. He's like, oh, if I have immunity, I'm gonna take credit for anything. And the cops were just like, okay, and they closed all these cases.
Yeah,
Because LAPD was reselling confiscated drugs back on the street. It's corrupt as hell, but anyway, let's get back on target. But yeah, so
Oh, pun intended there. Let's get back on target.
oh man, too soon on the
Too
anniversary too.
soon. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not trying to make light of it, but yeah, look, Tuesday, September 11th, 2021 was quite the day. I still remember where I was. I was filing some papers in a court before the building got evacuated. So I still remember
Tuesday
where I
again.
was. What's that?
It's Tuesday now
Yeah,
over here.
for
Yeah.
you, yeah. For us,
Yeah.
we're still on Monday. But now, do you remember where you were that day? We can kind of maybe start there.
Yeah, I was driving to college. I was in my car, heard it on the radio.
And what was the first news
like,
you heard? One of the towers were hit at the time?
It was like Man Cow Morning Radio or something was on, and I was flipping through after that. And yeah, they weren't saying the World Trade Centers. They kept saying the Twin Towers. Same thing, but that's what everyone used to say. And I had heard William Pierce and some other people saying, stay out of tall buildings. They're going to blame it on Saddam. I'd heard this chatter prior to 9/11. It was interesting because I just had an argument, well, like a discussion in my car with my girlfriend and my roommate. We were going to my house. I remember we were in Williamsburg, and they're like, why do you care about the Israel-Palestine conflict so much? Like, you know, clean up your own yard, whatever. And I said, it's going to be in our own yard soon. These things don't stay contained over there. So we're paying for it. We're paying for the settlements and everything. It's going to come back and hit us in the nuts. And I said, if you're a New Yorker, better wear your hard hat, stay out of tall buildings. Now, I was just quoting what I had heard from Pierce.
And how early before did you start hearing this?
No, I didn't know it. I was just like the first half, like, yeah, look, these things don't stay contained. There's blowback. Although people think blowback's unintended consequences, I think they're indifferent to whether there's consequences, because if it comes, that benefits them too. But backdraft, you could call it, or something. I don't know. But when it happened, they're all like, what did you know? Did you were in on it? Because when the anthrax was sent, I knew immediately that was Israel when it said death to America, death to Israel. And I had known that Israel had stolen anthrax in the 90s, just before the World Trade Center attack in 1993.
The first one, right? The bomb in the basement.
Yeah. Philip Zachariah had stolen anthrax spores illegally. He had gone in and entered the lab where he'd been fired from. For him and his group of Zionists were harassing an Egyptian coworker named Ayad Assad. And he had a cohort who still worked at the lab. Her name was Miriam Ripley, and she let him back in. And there was 23 vials of gain-of-function anthrax missing. And it seemed like the plan back then was to knock the World Trade Center into the other one and follow it up with a biological attack of anthrax. But because the Ryder truck was in the wrong place and the towers didn't fall, they pulled an audible and they didn't mail the anthrax. But when I saw the notes, I said, oh, this has to be them. And then when they started the line about Prague, James Woolsey, who was the former director of the CIA, only had his position because of Epstein blackmail on Clinton, comes in and says, oh yeah, by the way, Iraq gave this anthrax to Al-Qaeda. And everybody knew Israel wanted war with Iraq. They've been writing about it since right after the first war. They've been writing, especially 97, 98. They really put the pedal to the metal. They had Monica Lewinsky and all that, and it didn't go through. And they made Bush Sr. a one-term president because he wouldn't finish the job. And it's really funny because Bush is interviewing Dick Cheney, because Dick Cheney, before he's vice president, used to be the DOD head. He had Rumsfeld's position. And he very elegantly lays out how you couldn't go in and remove Saddam, how it would become a quagmire, how it would create sectarian infighting between the different Islamic factions, that it would threaten the territorial integrity of Turkey, and there'd be a Kurdistan, like everything that did happen after 2003, he said. So you knew that they knew, like some of these neocons, like Doug Feith, are just like, what's her name? Karen Jean-Pierre level stupid. Like on a scale of 1 to her, how dumb are they, right? Feith is up there. But Cheney's not dumb. Kissinger's not dumb. Pearl's not dumb. There's evil and dumb. There's evil and not dumb.
Right.
But this is sort of the not stupid but evil. And then there's people who aren't evil, they're just stupid and they get fooled.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
Feith would have been dumb and evil. Cheney is
Combo.
not dumb and evil. Yeah. So there he's in the C group. They knew it would be a quagmire. He laid it all out. But here it comes. Does Cheney open his mouth and say we shouldn't invade again? No, because Kellogg, Brown and Root and Halliburton, and he's going to make a lot of handsome profits and probably can't compromise because he's on the DC Madame's list. Rumors of him roughing up and throwing women on the ground, everything. Just dude's sick. So that's another tangent what Epstein all was doing. But James Woolsey was put in there against Clinton's wishes. He hated him. He wouldn't even talk to him. He'd make him handwritten reports. He didn't want him there. He couldn't stand him. But Clinton was very compromised. And Lewinsky's just the one that got caught, came out. That was like, oh, she's 20. Like, look, we can go worse. Do what we say. And then now we know he's on all these flights on Epstein's planes. And Hillary's involved as well. And da, 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 da. But anyway, Woolsey comes out and says, Atta met in Prague, Mohammed Atta from Flight 11, with senior Iraqi officials. And guess what? He got anthrax. Now, this had been written about in the Weekly Standard. They had a big picture of Osama bin Laden on July 31st of their issue. And Robert Kagan, Ding, and Gary Schmidt start to lie about anthrax. And then they didn't say, they didn't connect it all to Iraq yet because the anthrax hadn't been opened. But once it's open, they go, oh, yeah, by the way, Osama bin Laden and Saddam are working together. And, bin Laden's hijackers got anthrax from Iraq. And that's why they sent it to Patrick Leahy, who has the amendment to forbid military aid to Israel, and gave fake anthrax to Judith Miller, who's a war hawk that blamed everything on Iraq from Oklahoma City to 9/11, World Trade Center attack in 93. She blames everything on Iraq. She was dating Louis Leibowitz, who is Scooter Libby, who is Dick Cheney's lawyer. And also he'd been a lawyer for Mark Rich. Mark Rich is one of these hardcore, he owned Glencore Commodities, helped rape Africa, got a long list of problems, criminal activity, Interpol's most wanted list. And Bill Clinton gave him a pardon his last hour in office.
Oh, wow.
And Denise Rich is a crook too. Yeah, so he pardons the Zionist oligarch who's using Dick Cheney's lawyer as his own personal lawyer, works for Mossad, all da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, Miller's dating him. She's writing all this trash in the New York Times about Iraq constantly. It was clearly a Zionist cabal. And then they even wrote in the notes, death to America, death to Israel. In Al-Qaeda, yeah. So the domestic terrorists, why would they end up blaming this guy named Bruce Ivins, who after he died, they proved he physically could not have made this anthrax as gain of function. He didn't have the equipment or the ability or the skill set. He was suicided before his trial. And why would he put notes about Israel and stuff? How did he get the Israeli security to lie about a meeting in Prague and blame the whole thing on Iraq? He couldn't have done that. At minimal, even if he did send the anthrax, Israel still lied and said Iraqis gave it to Al-Qaeda.
You look at the screen, you can see that little psych, death, Allah, America, Israel, great. You can see what they're doing there. That was in the notes. We're going to get right back into 9/11, but I want to answer some of the questions from chat, and we're going to have the Ian Hess surprise. Can of Worms opener sends in a dead Lincoln and says, a decade ago, I was standing watch in the middle of the night, a long way from home, trying to figure out why everybody hated us. A shipmate asked me if I'd heard of Ryan Dawson. Then he explained. Well, yeah, there's a lot of reasons we're hated. And it is not because of our freedoms. It's because we kill their kids. That's one of the big reasons. Let's see. And then there's one Dead Hamilton from Inner Circle Trader that says, by the way, I just want to put it out that Johnny Somali isn't Somali. He's Ethiopian, using Somali to get attention. He got called out on it, a way to trigger us Somali because he's desperate for attention. Yeah, I think he just chose Somali because it, like Johnny, it ends with E or something. He got knocked out, and so did his buddy in Japan the other day, by a gaijin, no less. Just one hit, knocked them both out. It was hilarious. You know, I'm absolutely against this monetizing harassment. And you've seen this with some idiot in the UK that breaks into people's houses and films it and stuff. They make so much money off YouTube, Kick, or whatever for the lols, going around harassing people, and their chat loves it and eggs them on, doing criminal activity and scaring the hell out of people. Breaking and entering is illegal, you know, and yelling at somebody, some stranger on the train. I think it was like a middle school kid, and he's yelling about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Like, that is, I mean, like, yeah, why don't you go in a synagogue and start talking about Auschwitz and ha ha or something? Not funny at all. And so, good on whoever knocked them out. It's just, normally I wouldn't advocate violence, but these people, there needs to be some comeuppance because these social media companies won't do anything about it. These pranksters and stuff, and sometimes these pranks go really wrong. Somebody had a gun pulled on him. He's like, it's just a joke, dude. Just a joke, dude. They don't know that. You're breaking your car. And also, you can use joke as cover. And real sick thing, like John Zerka and stuff, he'll go around Omegle hitting on little kids and then act like, oh, it's just comedy. Really? You're so desperate for comedy, you got to flirt with 14-year-olds? Think of something better to do. Anyway, we're going to do Ian Hess soon, and you definitely want to look at your screen. If you're just listening to this, which I understand because you could just hear the audio and get a good conversation, but you definitely want to pop back on and look at the screen when you hear music, because that means it's the Ian Hess video, and it is, I'll put some time into that because he earned it. All right, let's get back. We're talking about anthrax. Let's get to it.
Al-Qaeda didn't have anthrax, neither did Iraq. And Bruce Ivins didn't send the anthrax. Oh, the whole thing was done by the Israelis. They mailed the anthrax. They said it came from Iraq. They said it came from Al-Qaeda. And then later, they blamed Stephen Hatfield, who's an enemy of B'nai B'rith. And when he won his giant lawsuit, they go, okay, oh, it came from the lab because you genetically traced it. And they tried to cover that up. They physically destroyed the Ames strain of anthrax in Ames, Iowa, in the middle of an anthrax investigation. That the feds go and wipe that out. A guy named Spike Bowman did that. And they're like, okay, it was Bruce Ivins. And then he dies of a Tylenol overdose all by himself.
Really? You Tylenol overdose. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was a way of, it was such a big FU because it was a way of killing, it was a way of suiciding somebody and letting you know it wasn't suicide. Just say, yeah, let's make this as ridiculous as possible so you don't even ask about it ever again. It's a way of saying, yeah, we'll kill you. That's what it means.
Correct.
You do that.
If you're paying attention, that's a message for sure.
It's like Gary Webb shoots himself twice in the head.
Different caliber?
Yeah, I guess you could have two guns. He was murdered. And it was a way of saying, yeah, we did it. You know, that's same thing with Epstein. But, oh, yes, he's taken off suicide watch. His roommates moved out to a different cell. His door's unlocked. The cameras don't work. The guards are asleep. His second autopsy shows he's got broken bones in his neck. No one cares. It was a way of saying, yeah, so what? Yeah, we killed him. What are you going to do? You know, because there are ways to do it and make it look plausible.
They could be super clean and make it hard.
And it's just my opinion that they make it ridiculous as a flex.
Well, it also makes,
like when they killed Jean-Luc Brunel.
Crazy too. It makes half the people crazy talking about the list, and he didn't do it. Like, it makes a lot of people crazy. If it came in and it looked like a heart attack and it looked totally natural, there'd be a lot less people paying attention to it, for sure.
Did you just say he died of coincidence? Sorry.
But no, it happens. I'm sorry.
Clearly Epstein died of COVID.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
I said that too. I was like, Lincoln died of COVID. JFK was killed by the virus, like obviously, right? It's stupid, but
Yeah.
they lied about anthrax, and that alone, like without even getting into the collapse of the buildings and all, like 9/11 itself, the fact that a foreign state erroneously tied it to an innocent country, and it did lead to a giant war, especially between like the US, the UK, and Poland, sent a lot of troops down there, and it lost a lot of men and lost a lot of money, about $5 trillion when you add up the war and the occupation that just the United States spent, and about 6,000 soldiers killed in action, and probably 10 times as many from veteran suicides afterwards.
Right. Right.
And
And that's all
then,
over the world.
obviously,
Canada as well.
probably 800,000 to a million Iraqis murdered, mostly civilians. And when I say mostly, I mean 85% or up. They were just gunning people down in Fallujah. And this is also the birth of the Blackwaters and these giant mercenary things, triple canopy and stuff that are outfitting all this crap. Got in there, and they would get money for reconstruction contracts that never took place. And Joe Biden's family was involved in that. They're getting contracts to build houses, and then they didn't build any houses, and they still got the money. And they're like, oh, look, the vice president is Frank Biden. I have a movie on that too. They're sick. It's both parties. They all did it. It's not like there was no opposition. The opposition was individuals, Ron Paul, and there was a few congressmen that said, no, what the hell are you doing? Dennis Kucinich maybe, but by and large, both parties were all for it. There was an anti-Bush movement. There was not an anti-war movement, because they elected Kerry, who said even if he knew, well, then they nominated him for the primaries.
Right.
They didn't win, but like even if he knew there wasn't WMDs, he still would have supported the war in Iraq.
Well, he's busy now under Biden.
Yeah, and he was the State Department under Obama when Obama was president the first two times, because now it's his third time, sort of, right? Because Biden doesn't know where he is. And they invaded Libya and all that joyous stuff, made slavery great again in North Africa. Sure, they're proud. First black-ish president, and he reconstituted slavery in Africa. Isn't that amazing?
It's insane. It's insane.
No one talks about Libya anymore. Like, everyone's pissed about Bush's war in Iraq, but Obama got a pass on Libya, and they turned that country upside down. That was a functional North African country. I know Gaddafi was Gaddafi, whatever, but like, same with Saddam. It's not like I'm pro Saddam because I didn't want a war in Iraq, but they held that. It is not easy to govern those areas, all the different ethnic and tribal conflicts and stuff. And Gaddafi had, despite how he started, had a pretty prosperous country, and they handed it over to Al Qaeda and murdered some of his kids. And just, you look at Libya, and they flattened that place. And then it got so bad, people were being like selling themselves, selling their children. Same thing happened in Iraq. Between the two wars, we should talk about the sanctions that killed over 500,000. And
Iraqis.
The famous quote about 500,000 children have died. Is the price worth it? We think the price is worth it. Well, that interview was in 1997. There's 6 more years of that, and it gets.
That was 1998. I made a mistake right there, but the point's still valid.
It's worse each year. And there are policy papers bragging about blowing up the water treatment centers and how it would create E. coli, Ebola, and all this crap, because people are drinking straight from the Euphrates rivers and stuff. They're so desperate. And they said, we'll say that the chlorine is something that's used in water filtration, could double for mustard gas. So WMD. And the sad thing is, the inspectors, because we did give him mustard gas, well, as pesticides, sure. Rumsfeld's there shaking Saddam's hand. They used it against Iran, but whatever. All of that had been gotten rid of, and then Scott Ritter, the inspectors went in there, and they did not have WMDs. Not biological, not chemical, and definitely not nuclear.
Mhm.
And didn't matter. They're like,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's over here. Maybe it's over here. Let me check under your palace. And eventually Saddam's like, no, you're never gonna. It's kind of like the Iran deal. You're always going to make new conditions. It's like Charlie Brown kicking the football. You're never going to do it. You're jerking us around. You're full of crap. Because they were. They're looking for a pretext. They're like, oh, when you meet these conditions, and then they would meet those conditions. They're like, now we're going to add these other conditions. Keep raising the bar every
Mhm.
time they meet it indefinitely. So they never get the sanctions lifted. And, or unfreeze their money and so on. And he realized this.
Well,
I
maybe
remember when
this.
Saddam offered to debate George Bush. I thought, oh, that
Yeah, I
would
remember that.
be
That'd be great.
money, dude. That would be, oh man, he would have slaughtered him. But even
Yeah.
with a earpiece, Bush would not have been able to handle that.
No.
But
But maybe
no,
what's going on here?
we can't talk to them. We don't talk to bad people. We just murder a million people, mostly civilians. That's a better idea, sure.
So just like Epstein being killed so blatant as a message as well, maybe these
Mhm.
false allegations of weapons of mass destruction is also a message to other countries that will just simply say you have something come in or wipe you out. So
I mean, I don't know why they even lie. Like, why just invade them? There's nothing we can do about it. If they just say we're invading Iraq, you know what I mean? But they needed. It's all volunteer armies, so they need Americans to think Saddam had something to do with 9/11 to justify it and to go over there and do it. And they did heavily rely on mercenaries and the occupation forces because a lot of people say, "Hey, where are all these weapons you said were here?" And they were going to plant them. And Scott Ritter told me a story of like why they couldn't plant them because they knew that the inspection teams knew where each thing were from and how to trace them. And so if you just put some there, you get caught.
right.
But that was the idea: is just say that and then go. They did that before as Operation Washtub, where they went and found their own weapons cache and then said, "Oh, look what the Soviets did." And not Washtub, that was Brazil. Car Wash. Car Wash is Brazil. Washtub, I have it right. Yeah, Operation Washtub. And people can look that up. It's probably still on Wiki until who erases it. But they knew it wasn't the communists because it was their own weapons. They went and found weapons they put there themselves, and they were going to do a repeat of that. But this is, internet age and harder to get away with.
For
I
sure.
think it didn't matter. Once Iraq had been blown to pieces, they didn't care what happened. They're like, whatever. None of them got prosecuted. Nothing happened. Everyone hates them. They're like, you can hate us all day. Cheney didn't care if you hate them. Neocons don't care how much hate they get. They got their money. They destroyed Iraq. That's what they wanted. They're not out for public love. They don't give a damn. They want power. That's all. And
they got it.
got everything. Yeah, they got everything they wanted.
Yeah, I don't think they messed up one stage of this, did they? Looks like they planned this out quite well and got it all.
Well, I think they underestimated the damage they did to the public trust because when they wanted a war in Syria, they couldn't get boots on the ground because the war in Iraq had been so bad. And John Kerry even complains about it on a hot mic to the heads of the FSA and the ISIS, essentially. He's saying we can't do it. All these Americans called into Congress saying, do not invade Syria. You cannot do this. We're not falling for the Hillary gas people crap again. So they used proxy forces. They had to arm insurgency groups and try to topple Syria from within. And Assad, that almost worked until the Russians came in and started bombing these caravans that were exporting oil to Turkey, which ultimately went to the Israelis. Because they're the whole reason for invading Libya was controlling the maritime Silk Road. And they're like, oh, Gaddafi had the gold denier, petrodollar. That's a European fantasy. It's like, oh, really? The French invaded Libya to help the dollar instead of the euro? No, like the U.S. invaded from behind. It had nothing to do with that. It's about the maritime Silk Road. Egypt had just had a revolution. They were allowing Iranian ships and Libyan ships to go through the Suez Canal, which connected cheap oil to China. And that's a no-no. And Europe lost $22 billion in contracts at the very onset. Now they ended up having another revolution in Egypt. So Mubarak's out, and Morsi, and then Sisi, and and they got it back under control. But they didn't know whether they're going to be able to pull that off. They killed Gaddafi, and and Gaddafi had gotten rid of his nuclear weapons program. Korea must have been yeah, they must be watching that, going, "We're not getting rid of our nukes."
Korea, yeah, for sure. Because look what happens. You get Gaddafi'd.
I remember and actually, John Bolton, when they went to Hanoi, that meeting in Vietnam, he said, "We're going to give you the Libya treatment." Oh, you wreck that, all chances of negotiating there. Unbelievable.
No, it's incredible. That's a lot of gall there for sure. All right, so let's move through the tragedy and let's start talking about maybe some of the commission and some of the review and some of the lies that have been discovered over the years.
When you said the tragedy, I thought you were talking about Fort Sumter. All right, yeah, we can do
that. We're gonna have to bring you back on. I'm gonna.
Got one on entropy that relates to that. It's from Portugal podcast, 4.99. So not quite a dead link. It says, read this. Fuck Lincoln with an anchor. Yeah. Or a chainsaw. And there's another one from Inner Circle Trader. I can't read that, dude. But yeah, I get you. And he says, fuck Lincoln with a blade. Let's see. Where can I find? Oh, he says, Ryan Dawson, where can I find about MAOA gene data? Have you done some research on this? I feel like it is true. I don't know why most blacks are emotional. I see this as Somali bro, F Lincoln with a blade. JF Garpley, maybe. I know I don't get into this genetic stuff because I don't put a lot of stock in it. I see, to me, it's pretty damn clear whether someone's emotional or not. Tends to be because of how they're raised. And a lot of people without a dad who only grow up with the mother, or, and I don't think it's just because it's the mom. It's because it's only one person. They can't handle raising kids by themselves. You can do that only for so long. You just need 10-minute break and you don't have one ever. There's no one else ever there to help you. They lose it and they go off on the kids and they act emotional in front of them. And the kids pick that up. They mirror whatever the mother's doing and so on. And so, like single dads, dad doesn't end up with the kids unless he's a, super successful. I mean, you have to be overwhelmingly the better parent to win custody, unless the mother died or something. Dads just don't get their kids. The courts favor women. So I think part of that is probably all that is. I wouldn't chalk it up to genes. And for black houses, at least in the United States, 75% are fatherless. 75%. And then there might be some that have a dad, but he's never there, or whatever. And those kind of kids act out. And I know just from teaching school, like I know who the single parent houses are without having to ask, because the kids of any color act a certain way, desperate for attention and stuff. So don't be so quick to chalk everything up to genes. But if you want to know about it, and that is, and I could be wrong, but I don't know much about MAOA or any of that stuff. So maybe JF Garpley, if you want to look at that. Let's see. Looking over in Power Chat. Chip Walker says, missed you live. Interesting guest. I think that was from yesterday, talking about Andrei Martinyanov. You should definitely get his book. I just put it on the shelf. I just put that on Twitter. And looking at Rumble. All right. F Lincoln with a blade and a cactus. Let's get back to the conversation.
I have to connect you to Jeremy. Have you met Jeremy personally?
We'll do that one. No, I don't think he's allowed to leave Kakistan, and I'm not going to Canada. I don't know if I'm allowed in. So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's pretty crazy.
They have I get accused of, it's not true, but I get accused of denying a certain event in World War II, and that's illegal in Canada. So I'm not risking it.
Yeah, there's another event that became illegal to talk about or deny in Canada, and that's to do with Native children and the schools.
Yeah,
we can't.
Well, look, I don't deny that event. That's just some shit they say. But
Sure,
I think
you'll be used a
I
bit.
think you should be allowed to. Like, I don't think you should go to jail for questioning historical things, but I'm not one of those people, just to be clear.
Sure. Thank you very much. You just saved us on meta there. Okay, so yeah, let's go to the September 11th now, and then I want to kind of learn new details. So over the last 22 years, more and more information has come out. It's been pretty quiet for the last decade or so on this subject. There's been other things to talk about and have our attention now, sexualization of children and COVID and other things now. So this issue has kind of, quieted
Do you
down
want me
quite a bit.
to just tell you the stuff I think you probably don't know?
Please,
I think,
yeah, let's get all the new stuff.
I think you and your audience all know, the physics arguments and all that stuff. So in building
Right,
7,
10
I think you've
seconds,
all
free
heard,
fall,
yeah.
7
Yeah,
should not
yeah,
have
so-
fallen, kaboom, kaboom,
So-
yeah.
So I'll just go ahead and let me say some of the stuff. I don't know if you know this or not, so I'll just go over what I think you might not know to save time.
Sure.
So one thing, huge story, what the anthrax already went over. No one ever talks about that. But there was a team of guys.
Sorry, muted the whole time. I said, "Are you ready? We're going to go for Ian Hess, or I can play it at the end." Y'all let me know in chat. You push in for now, L for later. And by the way, TACP Ness says for 2, would be funny if a 5G tower they put up near me unlocks some superpower in my brain and I get kinetics. I guess he means Earth orbit would be full of a lot of folks in cars and change lanes without signaling. Well, yeah, you'd make flying cars if you could move things with your minds. We have those already. They're called helicopters. 5G, man, I'm going to do a little class with crayons and stuff, like 4th grade science, about the spectrum from radio waves to X-rays. The harmful stuff is after the color purple. It's ultraviolet to X-rays. Visual light, not so harmful, unless you put it in a magnifying glass, but it don't be like that. And anything below that, not harmful at all. Microwaves, infrared, radio waves, unless some special condition, like, well, if you put it in a microwave oven where you bounce it off plates over and over, that's the equivalent of a magnifying glass focusing a laser on you, visual light. It's not much to do about nothing. But people hear radiation and they freak out. You're getting small levels of radiation right now from your computer or phone screen. You get it from sunlight. You get it from your light bulb. And there's radio waves passing right through your house all the time. That it can't even get through your skin. Anyway, good joke. Good joke. Now or later. Now, it looks like now. Okay. Then I'm going to have to find, it looks about the mid-mark of this conversation, so I'll do my best. Here we go. Thank you, Ian Hess. The boys are going to enjoy this more than the ladies. Once I find it, let's see here. Is it this one? No, that's not it. There it is. I'm a little bit disappointed because Rumble couldn't deal with all those cutscenes. You could see the frog, his motions like this, and he was going all slow, and so it affected the way the boobs bounced and stuff. Looks way better on my computer than it does on Rumble. That's unfortunate. Um, I'll just send it to Ian. It's not a bad video still, but it's like if you knew how many cuts I made to create that and how long that took, it kind of pisses me off that the stream couldn't handle the jiggling. Oh well, it's there are limits to these things, I guess. Yeah, Japan's the hottest, I know. All right, let's get back to the conversation on September 11th. That's for Ian Hess though, because he's been a Chad donor, and so why not?
September 11th now, and then I want to kind of learn new details. So over the last 22 years, more and more information has come out. It's been pretty quiet for the last decade or so on this subject. There's been other things to talk about and have our attention now, sexualization of children and COVID and other things now. So this issue has kind of, quieted down.
Do you want me
quite a bit.
to just tell you the stuff I think you probably don't know?
Please,
I think,
yeah, let's get all the new stuff.
I think you and your audience all know, the physics arguments and all that stuff. So
Right,
building
10
7, I think
seconds,
you've all
free
heard,
fall,
yeah.
7
Yeah,
should not
yeah,
have fallen, kaboom, kaboom,
So-
yeah.
So I'll just go ahead and let me say some of the stuff. I don't know if you know this or not, so I'll just go over what I think you might not know to save time.
Sure.
So one thing, huge story, what the anthrax already went over, no one ever talks about that. But there was a team of guys led by a man from Jerusalem, Khalid al-Dawla, who did have illegal access to the World Trade Centers in the week prior to September 11th. They got serendipitously busted in Tennessee, where the DMVs, the Department of Motor Vehicles, where you get a driver's license. I say that because people who aren't from the U.S. don't know what that means, they don't know the acronym. So Department of Motor Vehicles had an employee named Catherine Smith who was giving out fake IDs for all these truck drivers. Because you know about the moving systems, I assume. So you need people, you need license. In Tennessee in 2000 and 2001, you didn't need a social security number to get an ID. So a lot of people, even that's because FedEx is based there and they use migrant workers, whatever. So there was a sting operation because they knew she'd been selling these things on the side. She had been given a car by Odala, and they arrested 6 men in a parking lot when they went to get their fake IDs. This is just after 9/11. And they found out that one of them had driven an Aeros truck all the way from New York to Tennessee on 9/11. And through searching their person in a wallet, Zakir Hamad had a business cards and a pass to do work in the basement levels of the World Trade Center, dated September 5th. So just 6 days before 9/11. Now, the Port Authority is who decides whether there's going to be any work on the building's infrastructure. They claimed Magic Heating and Plumbing, Inco Mechanical, that they were working on the fire prevention systems. And yet, the Port Authority did not hire these people to work on the fire prevention systems. They weren't working on the fire prevention systems. They were sabotaging the fire prevention systems. Now, you don't have to go floor by floor and plant C4 or any of these fantasies of people. All you have to do is
let it burn.
All you have to do is sabotage the relay pumps, and then the water will not reach the upper floors. And if the water doesn't reach the upper floors, then all you have to do is let it burn. Because believe it or not, fire will take down a building. That's what happened to Plasco building. That's what happened to half the building in Madrid. It's funny because the 9/11 kooks would be like, what about the Madrid building in Spain? It didn't collapse. And we're like, actually, everything above the 22nd floor did collapse because they couldn't reach it with hoses. And everything below that didn't collapse because they could reach it with the water. So it's like it's a cell phone. That's a still building, and everything above it totally collapsed because they couldn't touch the fire from there. Plasco building in Iran fell. There's a bunch of examples. Like, yes, if you don't fight the fire, it's not just going to burn for infinity. and it doesn't have to reach temperatures to quote unquote melt steel.
Right.
Yeah, at way below the melting point. When you're like 660 degrees, steel will lose 50% of its tensile strength, and around 1,000 degrees, which indoor fires reach, it's 90% of its tensile strength. So it's gonna drop its weight bearing load way before the melting point. Fire absolutely will make steel building collapse. And if you purposely sabotage the fire prevention systems, you are maximizing the damage that can be done by fire. And that's just the regular fire, not to mention taking out 2 of the external walls by hitting it with a plane, and then add all the jet fuel, blah, blah, blah. And then it's up 90 floors with nothing but wind blowing through the hole. It's like a perfect situation for a fire. Now, in addition to that, there is evidence of truck bombs, because the cops and fire department reported finding vans full of explosives on 9/11. And the fire chief died on 9/11, collapsed. The building collapsed on him. But prior to that, they had found in the parking garage a van with explosive devices. And later, the police would find other vans with either traces of explosive residue or packed with explosives. So there was going to be another follow-up attack that they don't know. I think the original plan was to blow out the basement levels so that everyone would be trapped in the building, so that when it collapsed, you're looking at like 50,000 deaths instead of 3,000. And it did damage the lobbies, and the windows are broken, the panels had come off the walls, and the basement was decimated, it was burned, and fireballs down there. Everybody's reporting secondary explosions. The whole subway's full of smoke. This is witness after witness after witness says this, but it didn't collapse. So most of the people did escape. It was the ones in the impact zone died instantly, and the ones above it couldn't. There's only one stairwell was working. So if you picked the wrong one out of 4, you died. Some of them went up to the roof, they died. So, about a third of the building, the people who could get out did. But still, like 2,990 people died. And then you have to add hundreds on the plane died. So around 3,000. But it was going to be a lot worse. And it's sickening to think about it. But there were truck bombs found, and there was a particular van pulled over near the George Washington Bridge packed with explosives. This was reported live on television, CBS, ABC. And the next day, even, they asked the police commissioner and the mayor, Rudy Giuliani and Bernard Kerik, about it. And they didn't deny it. They said, yeah, those guys are in custody. Can't talk about it. But they didn't say, what truck full of explosives? They didn't say anything like that. They just said, yeah, they're in custody. It's being handled. They wouldn't talk about it. So somebody got busted and pulled over in a van full of bombs. Someone else, 5 individuals, got pulled over in a van with traces of explosives. That's the dancing Israelis. I think you do know about that. Or should I?
Yeah, but they're excited, or at least the video was.
Well, they were out real fast. So 3 guys got caught celebrating the attacks at Doric Towers. They had highlighted maps of Doric Towers in the World Trade Center. The driver of the van, von Kirchberg, had been spotted there on September 10th and September 7th. They got pulled out of the police lineup. His brother and himself were already on the counterintelligence database as people to watch. And then they picked up 2 more people from the White Glove Movers. So there were 6 different moving companies, all Israeli fronts. They all closed on 9/11. And these guys had passports and thousands of dollars in cash. They're going to Australia, Germany, India, exotic locations around the world, which is odd for somebody that moves furniture to take a vacation in a random Tuesday on September in Australia or whatever. Like, how do you have the money at your minimum wage job to just go do that? And how do you know the business is going to close that day? Because you bought your plane tickets and stuff and were ready to go before 9/11. You just knew they're going to shut down on 9/11, and that was your last day at work. And you just had a map with highlights of the tower where you're going to view the World Trade Center from. And then you're there filming the first plane hitting, which we know from people think there's a witness, Maria Septimrelli, because she's in this movie. I think it's called Defamation or something. And she isn't the sole witness. That she was the witness that called when her husband got home. She called the police and they put the bolo out, and that's how they caught him. But there were men making a billboard, and there were other tenants of Doric Tower, and they all had seen them. And they screwed up in the FBI documents because they sent pictures to Langley to be analyzed of the van, and the timestamp is 8:31. Well, the World Trade Center is hit on 8:46. So somebody went and parked prior to the attack happening. They didn't hear about it and run over there. They were there waiting. And then there's some other like tertiary evidence of all the cigarette butts on the ground, but you can kind of think they were there about this much time waiting while they're smoking and whatever. And da da da. And why would you celebrate a plane crash? And then all of them had different stories in their timeline. One of them said we'd arrived at between 10 and 12. So no, you didn't, because you're filmed there and only one tower has been hit. The other one hasn't been hit. So you're definitely there before 9:03, because 8:46 is the north towers hit the north side, 9:03 south tower gets hit the south side. And yeah, Joran Schmel and Omer Mamari and Sivan Kursberg and Paul Kursberg and Oded Elmer are the 5 like dancing Israelis. Only 3 of them were dancing. The other 2 got picked up after. And yeah, they lied. They failed the polygraph tests, and then they said this stupid stuff like they're there to document the event. Paul Kursberg gets busted in his interrogation, saying that after this, like 71 days later, he admits the Jewish agency sent them from blank to do blank, and it's all redacted. But he had some story. They were monitoring the hijacker cells, and the Miami field office contacted the Newark office. So that, for those of you who don't live in the United States, that's Florida contacts New Jersey to say, yeah, one of these Alamari, one of the hijackers, actually used classic international movers to go back and forth between Florida and New York or New Jersey. New York and New Jersey, like across the river from each other. So that's odd. A 9/11, not just suspect, but known hijacker is getting a ride from the Israeli front companies who celebrate the attacks. And, you know, again, back with the anthrax, when they mailed those letters, they mailed them from locations in Florida and New Jersey where Al-Qaeda was based. So how did you know where those guys were living? Unless, I don't know, you were living next door to them, as they were. And so there were 2 different outfits. They had a group of fake art students that have been spying on the DEA and the ecstasy trade who are monitoring the hijackers in Florida. And then they had these moving companies, which seemed to be a way to follow people around, because you have a van parked wherever, you know, and gives you access in and out of the towers should you be putting anything in there.
Right.
Like truck bombs. Yeah.
How many truck bombs do you think there was?
I don't know, but they found 3, so you only need 1. Obviously, some of them blew up, so more than 3. And there was a call. Somebody said in broken English that he saw Palestinian bomb makers at the airport mixing a bomb. I don't know how you know they're Palestinian unless they're waving a Pali flag or something, but that they were headed toward the Holland Tunnel, but the police just shut down all the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln, and the George Washington Bridge, Lincoln Tunnel, and that dragnet caught the dancing Israelis. Now the Israelis didn't worry. They were trying to get back into New York because they had a big party on September 10th in Brooklyn. That's
really
odd. That huge party on Monday. Yeah, I found the flyer. I talked to the DJ that was at the event. Like, they had this giant party in Brooklyn because they knew it was coming in the morning. They knew. That's why Mamari was asleep in the van when they had partied all night. They did not know that their license plate had been tagged at Doric and that anyone was even looking for them. And when they got pulled over, the first words out of Kursberg's mouth was, "Oh, we're not your problem. The Palestinians are the problem. Your problem are our problems." Talking about Palestine, because they knew the story was going to be blame the truck bomb on the Palestinians, because that's the anonymous calls that were being made. And Charlie Rose and John McCain and people, they had this story like, oh yeah, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Al-Qaeda are all working together. Now, that is, they hate each other. Hezbollah Shia and Sunni don't get along even now. They had nothing to do with attacking New York, and neither did Hamas. It doesn't even have that kind of reach at all. If they could pull something off like that, they'd blow things up in Israel. But whatever, they were just implicating all of Israel's enemies. But when the cops pulled the dancing Israelis over, and at least one of the vans didn't work or whatever, and the fire department and cops had that in custody, they took it to the Meadowlands. They turned this like sports store into like a temporary bomb squad. What do you call it? They roped it off and they just turned it in. They just towed these things out and worked on them there. And so again, they had to pull an audible, and another one of the planes didn't arrive either. So they're like, Building 7 just fell. And,
wait a minute. So there's meant to be another plane for 7?
Well, we don't know, but there was a plane. I think they were going to hit the World Trade Center again because they weren't sure it was going to fall. So they were going to double up on WCT-1.
Well, that was
Building
certainly
7
made it clear that it was an attack then if they pulled that off on time.
Yeah, well, it went down in Pennsylvania, so they never made it back, but they were going back to New York.
Okay, so the Pennsylvania one was supposed to come back north to hit New York? And not,
yeah, they always say,
not
it's
BC?
going to hit the White House. I'm like, why is it going northeast and been going northeast? Were they going to go northeast and then go south? Like, no. And they even said, we're going back to New York to the passengers, because a lot of hijacked planes up into that point where they would land and hold them hostage. They didn't run into buildings. So people are keeping cool, like, all right, we got to land and negotiate, whatever. But through the airphones, they had gotten wind of what had been happening in New York. And so there happened to be a judoka on the plane too. And they took it down, and they were missing one and possibly two of the people who were supposed to be muscle. Zaid al-Jarrah, who's supposed to be piloting the plane, doesn't seem to be on the plane because we got the black box. And the transcript was played for the Moussaoui trial, the 20th hijacker. And nobody ever talks about Ziad al-Jarrah, and he doesn't say anything. In fact, they're referring to the pilot as Al-Ghamdi. That's who actually piloted the plane. You would obviously the other hijackers knew who he was. And funny thing, other than the surveillance video, because he does go through security, but then all the passengers say there's 3 hijackers instead of 4. And then we find out from the hijackers in the cockpit, recorded on the black box, when they're saying up, up, down, down, shake the plane, and they're saying his name, it's not Ziad. And he doesn't even say Al Akbar or anything. Either 3 of them were talking and the 4th one just stayed quiet the whole time, or he wasn't on the plane. Now here's the thing that I find super sus. Zaid al-Jarrah, it is discovered right after 9/11, 2022, like January. He had 2 first cousins working in Israeli intelligence, Youssef al-Jarrah and Ali al-Jarrah, and he had an uncle as a politician. What the? You mean an alleged Al-Qaeda pilot, who, by the way, they found his passport with a little corner burned on it, so that proves.
Yeah, as it happens in a big explosion with airplanes. Yeah.
And they found another one in New York too, but I think that was Al-Shehi. People say it was Atta, it wasn't, but that's just because that's the hijacker they know. But Al-Jarrah's cousins aren't just working for Israel. They're working in Israeli intelligence. One of them had been a spy on Hezbollah since the 80s. And they ransacked their house and found his computers and everything. They were clearly Israeli intelligence. Israeli intelligence agents have a relative who doesn't seem to be on the plane because the black box was discovered and the audio is there and he ain't on it. The witnesses don't mention him. They mention the other 3. And you would think, well, it's possible 3 of them were the muscle and he's in there flying the plane. But we know he's not in there flying the plane. Al-Ghamdi was. So
you can hear that.
There's only 3. Yeah. And you can hear them say his name. So Ziad's not flying. Did he just get knocked out right away? Or no, because if that had happened, they would have all said there's 4 guys. 2 here and 1 in the cockpit. So, and they obviously charged the cockpit. And, he ducked out last moment. And that what I think is Israel had a mole in all the Al Qaeda cells, and he's the one that it just happened to be his family got busted as spies in Lebanon, and that story should have been huge. Wow, what a coincidence! A 9/11 hijacker and plotter and alleged pilot has family working for a foreign government who has agents celebrating the attack and following them around and giving them a ride from Florida to New Jersey and da 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 da. Nope. Yeah, we can't even get this one. Remember to Liberty. I mean, like, so it's I don't know. Like, I can keep going and going on 9/11 for hours, but I'm just trying to touch on the stuff that's underreported. Now, there's plenty of other things that
Well,
I
there were
think have been
things
done,
like some
been done
Saudi
to
flights
death.
happened.
Well, yeah, there's the fast track program in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia that they complained about, and they gave all these guys visas and they shouldn't have. There's the fact that two of them, Nawif al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar, were staying with a Saudi agent, a good agent, and that Omar Bayoumi and Osama Basnan had bought them a house, lived it with them, stayed across the street for them months in a row, helped them get a job, helped them go to flight school. And it's like, what are you doing? Are you just meet these guys in Culver City, LA, and take them down to San Diego to the Kurdish mosque? Random Muslims that had been involved in the Cole bombing and all that, and you just, oh yeah, you just happen to get money from a Saudi prince, Prince Bandar, and his wife, Prince Haifa bin Fasil, and you do it in a weird way where she gives it to the wife, Nawid Dalket of Bayoumi, who gives it to the wife of Osama Basnan, who gives it to the hijackers. Why don't you just give it to the hijackers? And why is the Saudi government sending you money secretly through people's wives and through these intermediaries so you can finance some random tourist in California, and you know they're going to flight schools and they can barely speak English or not at all? Come on. And oh, you're so nice, you're just going to buy an apartment and pay their lease and put your name on it so they have somewhere.
As you
Yeah,
do.
just random Muslim, like, I just feel sorry for you, I'm going to get you an apartment, and by the way, this money's coming from a prince in Saudi Arabia who's the head of their CIA. No big deal. Like, come on. And this information got redacted. Like, our own Senate in the JIS, the Joint Inquiry Senate investigation into September 11th, the Pentagon attack, and Pentabomb and all this, go through it and knew that this had happened, and they covered it up. Because Bandar Bush, as he's nicknamed, Bandar, Prince Bandar, Turk bin Fasil, whatever, was so close to the Bush family. And they're like, well, that's embarrassing. This happens on Bush's watch, and your buddy is financing terrorists. And that's just the ones that got caught. Right. We find out later through the UAE and a honey jarring company and some other things, like every single cell has ties to Middle Eastern governments. And even when there was an Iranian informant, an Iranian who gathered intelligence on Afghanistan, had gotten wind of this plot. Oh, and I have to add this. The CIA had followed these guys to a Al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia with KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, where they stayed the night with him. This is the uncle of Ramzi Youssef, who attacked the World Trade Center in '93, had the Vajinka plot to use airplanes to attack, and they're going to flight schools, and we don't know what they're about to do. They knew and didn't tell the FBI. Well, the FBI got warned too, because this Iranian informant who gathered intel on Afghanistan told the Washington field office that the details, that they're already in the U.S., that they have cells, that they're going to hijack planes, they're going to hit these targets. And Mike Fagali is the guy's name, put a kibosh on that.
Okay, so now I'm going to kind of get into that. So we're hearing a lot about Israel, Israeli staff, intelligence. How much of the U.S. government was complicit in this? Did they allow it? Were they just incompetent? Let's talk a little bit about
A little bit of
their.
both. Yeah, it's both. They are extremely incompetent, which makes it hard to know. Like, well, maybe they're just that dumb, you know. But
Mm,
no, Dick Cheney, for example, that's the vice president.
mhm.
So that's the second highest position.
He's
He
a great hunting
refused
friend
to.
to have, by the way.
Hey, the only cool thing he ever did was shoot his lawyer in the face with birdshot. Who didn't want to shoot Dick Cheney's lawyer in the face with birdshot? Like that's the one. I was
Even Dick
like
Cheney.
the only cool thing Cheney ever did was shoot his lawyer, and the only cool thing Bush did. The only moment I was ever proud of George Bush is when he dodged that shoe. I was like, oh,
This shit
okay,
is
pretty
not
proud.
bad.
Yeah, yeah, a little
Yeah, yeah.
Spidey sense going. Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm actually proud of the president. That was a pretty good duck, whatever. But that's it. He's a piece of shit otherwise. But yeah, that was a moment
Well,
of
he gave
like,
us a
oh.
lot of good sound bites. He definitely made us entertained. That's when
Dude,
he
Bush's
blew up
comedy
YouTube.
routine about himself was amazing. He could do stand up easily. But
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, I'm checking this.
Okay, so
See.
Cheney. So we're talking about Cheney.
Yeah, so Dick Cheney refused to shoot down Flight 77. And Flight 77 didn't hit the Pentagon on its first go. It was too high in the air, had too high altitude, so it had to loop around. And it's this giant miles-long loop. It's not like some corkscrew Top Gun maneuver like they say.
Mhm.
And he came in a second time at lower altitude and hit it. So, man, not only did they hit the Pentagon with the plane, they did a circle around it first and then did it again. And still nobody shot it down because Dick Cheney refused to. And the transportation secretary, Norman Mineta, as well as some lower officers who were in the POC bunker, had said and testified to Lee Hamilton of the 9/11 Commission, the same guy that to the whitewash of the Tower Commission and ran Contra, and guess who his partner was? Dick
Oh
Cheney.
no.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. The head Democrat was Lee Hamilton. The head Republican was Dick Cheney. Now he's investigating Dick Cheney. And Mineta, who passed away this year, said, yeah, that young man said the plane is, 40 miles out, 30 miles out, and the order's still standing. He whipped his neck around. He's like, of course, the order's still there. Now, Cheney claims he's talking about Flight 93, the one in Pennsylvania. No, you were
Yeah,
not.
but that was not out.
No, they're 30 miles from nothing. And Mineta
Headed
said,
northeast
they
as well,
said,
we found out.
it was heading northeast. It's not 30 miles from anything. And Norman Mineta said to Lee Hamilton, I have the recording of it, you're talking about Flight 77? Yes, the one that hit the Pentagon. Clear as day.
Mhm.
And I have the timelines, testimony from Clark and Condoleezza Rice. If you add it up, I've read their books. You go through, it's definitely Flight 77.
Right, because
And
it actually
Cheney
lines
refused to
up
shoot
to
down.
be that far out at that time. So everything lines
It's
up.
that far out. It fits the time when it was there and when they didn't shoot it because it did hit the Pentagon. And there's this huge propaganda thing about what plane? It was a missile, blah, 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 because that exonerates Cheney. That exonerates the U.S. government. And if you don't have, and they also act like there are no hijackers and no phone calls, and this is all Alex Jones, loose change, all this stuff. They're airplane deniers or 9/11 half planers. And they went full tilt to deny a plane hitting the Pentagon because the plane that hit the Pentagon implicates the vice president and the highest levels and the Joint Chiefs of Staff because they didn't shoot it down.
Didn't shoot it down. Yeah.
And it also, if you don't have hijackers, well, Naif al-Hazmi disappears, Khalid al-Midhar disappears, and you no longer have a paper trail back to Saudi Arabia like I just explained.
Oh, I'm seeing now. Okay.
So
Yeah, by
when you
having a
get rid of
pilotless missile. Right.
Right. When you make a missile instead of a plane, you've now erased the phone calls, you've erased the hijackers, and you erased the refusal to shoot it down. So in one blow, the paper trail back to the Saudi government and the U.S. government disappears. And you sound like a fucking idiot because there's airplane debris in the building. There's DNA from all the passengers except for the baby at Walter Reed. It is clearly hit by a plane. The giant 90-foot hole in the first floor. And in all the movies, they show the second floor. And they're like, look, plane doesn't fit in an 18-foot hole. Like, I agree. It's also not an 18-foot hole. And sometimes they show the exit ring and act like that was the entrance. It's just full of crap. And that's on purpose. They didn't accidentally get a bunch of photographs to omit the giant hole in the first floor. This was propaganda on purpose. And then they have Rumsfeld slip up and say missile. He didn't slip up. That was part of the disinformation campaign, because
Deceive.
they screwed up royally because the idiot couldn't hit it on the first sweep and had to do a giant loop. And they're like, how do you explain, why aren't you shooting this plane? They already hit buildings in New York, and this guy gets to have a second try. Yeah, it's and the brass wasn't even on that side of the building. Rumsfeld couldn't be found.
Right.
He hit a renovated section, whatever. I don't put too much in that. People talk about, oh, it was a slush fund for but no, it wasn't. And they're like the missing gold, and that's all crap. Anything said by Loose Change is wrong. The only thing they got correct about 9/11 was the date. Yep, I think Scott Gordon, I might have Israeled that from him accidentally. I think he said it to me in an email or something. But they are the worst. And so all this crap about missiles and pods, and then it got even dumber with dustification, holograms, and they don't talk about the link to Iraq, which is concrete. They don't talk about the refusal to shoot down the plane. They don't talk about
and
the
this will explain why there's no video, why we didn't get anything from the Pentagon itself, because they don't.
Well, let me tackle that, because that one triggers the shit out of me. They're like, oh, the 85 cameras, blah, blah, blah. That is from an affidavit about cameras that caught September 11th. Almost all of them in New York, by the way. The cameras in the Pentagon are mostly in the Pentagon, filming what's going on inside the Pentagon. The cameras that are outside the Pentagon, guess what they're pointed at? The doors where people go in and out. They don't have a camera pointed at a random wall, just there where nothing ever happens. It's not an entrance, it's not it's just a wall. They don't have that. The only cameras that had it was the parking lot that sort of generally had, a view of the whole Pentagon. They don't have random camera just sitting there looking at the wall behind the heliport for some reason. And the cameras they do have on the exits and entrances are not designed to catch a plane going 400 miles an hour across the parking lot. They're designed to film people walking back and forth to their cars, or maybe driving a car. No one's driving a car 400 or 500 miles an hour. So you only get 5 frames. It's not like they're hiding the other frames. They don't have other frames. That shitty video is all they got. They did not confiscate the other cameras that got it. Those 85 cameras are from the footage of New York, mostly the second plane. They had the one from the fire department, accidentally caught the first plane hitting, and they found one other of the first plane, and the rest are all of the second plane. And the Pentagon stuff, they did not have a random camera pointed at a random wall that was, in super slow-mo, whatever, to catch a plane zipping by to hit it. But you did have 140-something witnesses. You had 395 and 495. All those witnesses in Virginia saw a plane go to the Pentagon. No one saw it fly away from the Pentagon. You have the plane still in the Pentagon, pieces of the fuselage, engine, black box, all that there. And you have the passengers from Flight 77's bodies in the Pentagon. They did not evaporate or any of that. It did not. They're like, oh yeah, a plane couldn't just disappear. I'm like, yeah, it didn't.
It didn't.
And have you ever Googled Pentagon debris? It's all over the place. Like this one guy said he didn't see a piece on the lawn. I'm like, yeah, because it's not a Tom and Jerry cartoon that leaves a cutout of a plane like that. It's going to go in the building. And then they say this crap like, there's no way that the soft nose cone of a Boeing 777, it's just a Griffin argument, smashed through 6 reinforced walls of steel, concrete, blah, 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 because they've looked at an aerial view of the Pentagon and they see these rings. Well, guess what, Sherlock? The bottom 2 floors don't have rings. It's just one wall and then the wall in the C ring. So it only had to go through 2 walls. And it's not made of steel and all this. It's just brick. You can look at the hole and see the bricks right through. So it went through a bunch of sheetrock and wood and 2 brick walls. And then what punched out the C-ring wasn't the soft nose cone. It was the landing gear. Because guess what, dummy? They didn't put the wheels down. They had no intention of landing the plane. The wheels are still up. And they're made of steel, the cage around the wheels. And that went through the C-ring. That's it.
Oh, okay.
And we know because there's broken fucking landing gear in front of the fucking hole. And God damn, these people piss me off. Like, there's a tire twisted metal right in front of the C-ring. You would have to get the entire fire department, all the EMTs, all the cops, all the employees, all the witnesses on the 395 and 495, the people that work at the Pentagon and the medical examiners to all lie at the same time and then the press and so on, and then you have to go around planting charred plane parts and fake the DNA and fake the phone calls, or you ram a plane into the building and it matches all of the evidence.
Oh,
So the
right.
reason they lie about that, and it is a cult, because they're like, and the other one's building 7, and like,
Yes, I was about to move their neck.
you guys
Building
act
7
like another building didn't fall on top of it. It's not a normal thing. But, probably if you have truck bombs in World Trade Center 1 and 2, even though there's no evidence for it, it is reasonable speculation to say they had 1 and 7 also.
Okay.
But there's no evidence. But it's like, well, the other 2 had them and they all 3 fell. It wasn't hit by a plane. It did have a building fall on it. It did burn consecutively. For the Silverstein Pullet thing is he's saying pulled out of the building, because the full context, what he said is there's already so much loss of life already, referring to all the firemen that died in the collapse of the World Trade Center 1 and 2, that they didn't think it was worth it, that they could lose any more firemen. So they decided to pull out and watch it burn. They said it made the decision to pull, and we did, and we watched it burn. Jones clips it and says pull is an industry term for pull down the building with controlled demolition, and there's not enough time to set that up, and blah blah blah, No, they pulled out of the building and watched it burn because so many firemen had died already. And guess what happens if you don't even attempt to put a fire out for 7.5 hours? It'll burn down the building. It's like, right. You're over exaggerating the thing. Now you can say, well, the way it fell was pretty symmetric and It doesn't seem like the penthouse falls. Yeah, it could have been a truck bomb or something. It's not that important. The Pentagon is way more important because it leads back to the U.S. and Saudi government. And which one do they focus on the least?
Pentagon.
The number one is New York. The ones they hate, they don't want to talk about the Israelis with the spies and his family in 93, and they don't want to talk about the Saudi financing or the vice president on 77. They want to talk about 11 and 175 at the World Trade Centers. And then even more than that, the one that wasn't hit by a plane at all, Building 7, because it doesn't have a paper trail to anything. And then these jackasses are like, well, let's examine the debris. Look at nanothermite. Like, why are you looking around for nanothermite, which is not even real, when you have a foreign intelligence agency celebrating the attacks caught in a van full of bombs? This isn't rocket surgery.
Okay, so now that we've fleshed out both towers, Pentagon and World Trade Center 7, let's talk a bit about the commission, the report.
Oh, he also like Larry Silverstein tried to get double insurance. Yeah, he didn't get it.
I don't care too much about that. Yeah, no, I'm just curious
like,
how the report.
Oh, why do you get terrorism insurance? I'm like, I don't know, because the terrorists attacked the World Trade Center in 1993. Why would you not get terrorism insurance? I hate defending Silverstein. It's like when I have to defend Trump. I'm like, no, like all the crap you hate him for, you're wrong about, and all the stuff you ought to hate him for, you're not saying. So whatever.
Well, I want to get to the investigation now, because that commission report didn't contain all of this information, did it?
No. The 9/11 commission was like the Warren Commission. It's absolute crap.
Right. So what I would get at now is if the U.S. was more just incompetent and not really involved, but a little bit incompetent with some ties, how does the commission report get so trash? Like, how is it so bad?
Because it wasn't just incompetent. Like it was the point.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at now. So how many fingers and strings got into there, and how did those get into there to manipulate that report?
All right, so think about it. Who did they first try to pick to be the leader of the 9/11 Commission report? Henry Kissinger.
Yeah. The architect.
And then they end up with Thomas Keane and Lee Hamilton, who I explained already did one whitewash for the Tower Commission for Iran-Contra, which involved the Israelis. And so why not? And Keene's out there promoting a comic book, and they suppressed information because some of the same people who shared information with the Senate in their investigation, Philip Zelikow would not add their testimony or information to the 9/11 Commission investigation. And yet, what does Alex Jones do? He talks endlessly about the 9/11 Commission as if it's the investigation in 9/11, and doesn't even tell his audience that there is a massive Senate report investigation that spent a lot more money and a lot more details, and did allow, but then redacted the information that was in there, and then unredacted it around 2015 or so. You get the unredacted consecutive 28 pages that I went to DC and lobbied to get revealed, and it worked. And I said, all you
Sure.
guys run out there yelling at buildings and doing your stupid theatrical protests outside with your bongos and crap. Why don't you put on a suit and tie, just like AIPAC does, and go in the building and talk to the representatives like a grown-up would do, and
Mhm.
just see if that'll work? Because guess what? It did. I flew there from Japan. I went and lobbied to get the 28 unredacted and met with Walter Jones, and he went on a tirade about it. And it worked. They unredacted it. And that's how we have a lot of the information about the Saudi cell that I just explained. Now, that would get further corroborated by Private Manning and WikiLeaks and Operation
Right.
Encore. There's a redundance of information backing this up. And I had it in my film Empire and Mass before the 28 got released, because I met with a DoD leaker, had breakfast in DC, recorded it, stuck it on YouTube. Well, that got yanked. But about Bush and stuff prior to it being released.
Okay,
You know,
so
and it's something else, man. Dominic Suter is a 9/11 suspect here in urban moving system with the dancing Israelis. Justin Raimondo reports on that, and the FBI starts spying on antiwar.com. They're not worried about the criminals. They're worried about the media telling the people about the criminals, just like Hillary.
right.
They don't care what she did. They care about the people who told on her.
Now, is that kind of when they started to really infiltrate media and start controlling media? Because here in Canada, it's really bad. Now, they were doing some of that there because we really didn't get a lot of media holding anybody to account here, asking the questions that you're talking about and digging at all. There's like no investigative reporting happening.
Canada never had free press. And the U.S., from Operation Mockingbird on, they realized after Vietnam,
they couldn't let him be free press.
We have to control the media, because the media was very much against that war. It was very unpopular. I think it was also unpopular because of the draft. And so that was something they realized, we have to fix this. In fact, when George Bush Sr. invaded Iraq the first time, he said, we've kicked Vietnam syndrome. Because entire CNN was created for the Gulf War, spat off government propaganda. That's how they started. They even did a report out of Florida.
And it worked too.
Yeah, they did a report claiming to be in Saudi Arabia and had alarms going off and stuff. They were in Florida. There's footage of them after the set, like talking, look, these rubes, these dupes. Unbelievable. But that's when, I mean, the marriage between state and press starts with Lincoln. He closed down all these newspapers except the ones favorable to himself. And they never really covered after the Civil War because they had such a head start, and you had Reconstruction and so on, that the papers that Lincoln had favored by that time had gained monopoly. But you know, with the advent of radio and television, and you know, free markets start making a comeback, that all went away with the death of JFK. They clamped down hard, and you know, and that was sort of like they're angry about Nam, and so they end up doing full capture of the networks. And we only ended up with 6 later, 2 at the time. So, but they're all just, if you look at the board of directors for any of them, it perfectly overlaps with Lockheed Reed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, all these
the same
military
directors.
contracts.
Reed Martin, proud producer and proprietor, patriotic projectile party poppers. Got some uppity brown people making trouble for your empire? Replace them with a charred freighter and a cloud of white smoke. So remember, if your next geostrategic boondoggle's going awry, don't call us, we'll call you.
From chat, Dog Shit Poster 69 says, Ryan, how long did it take you to figure out the truth about 9/11? What year did you figure out the truth? Were you skeptical about what the media and government was saying about it from the beginning? I'm always skeptical about anything the media and government says, especially when there's a giant attack like that. I knew they wanted war with Iraq. And I think as soon as the anthrax letters came out and said death to America, death to Israel, I knew. I'm like, okay, it was too over the top. And I'd known about PNAC, and I'd known about the prior incident of anthrax being stolen in 93, because I looked at 93 and I thought, man, it seemed like B'nai B'rith and these people were going nuts. They were going after Hatfield and stuff back then, which is who they blamed it on again before Bruce Ivins. So that was very sus, to use a Zoomer word. When the day, I don't know, like I knew they were lying about Iraq day one, but I didn't figure out what had happened. I think until, I don't know, I kept learning more stuff. So, I mean, I knew Al-Qaeda was not independent from Intel, because that's from its inception. There was an old film, The Power of Nightmares, I think it was called. It went over Al-Qaeda and Reagan's support for freedom fighters and da-da-da-da. But, you know, it wasn't until I got those FOIAs that I really could nail down the dancing Israelis. Now, Justin Raimondo had written a book about it called 9/11 Terror Enigma, the Israeli Connection. And we had the police reports, and we knew all these guys' names, and we knew that they had celebrated. But we didn't have their interrogations where they're lying and all their timelines don't line up and all that until the FOIA, which was like the end of 2010, beginning of 2011. I don't even remember. But I had the Saudi stuff in 06, and then I had it super confirmed in 2014. That's when I got that DOD leaker. But I had already had it in my film, and I think that's why they admitted it to me, is because it was... we already knew. So I don't know. Bits and pieces came throughout the years. I knew about Al Jarrah in 2002. And I knew about the Tennessee cell right away and could not get anybody to listen to that other than Mike Rivero put it on whatreallyhappened.com. There was nowhere to go with that information. And YouTube and all that didn't exist back then. There was MySpace, but they banned me off of that. They banned me off AOL too, which knocked out all kinds of accounts, because that was the email I signed in with a bunch of things. And so when they get rid of your account, they get rid of anything else, including Google Video and so on. And yep. So I don't know. I was skeptical right away. Started compiling my theory right away. And it was about October when the anthrax letter got open. I just started laughing about it and go, no, this is them again, of course. So it took about a month. Let's see. It's October 5th. Somebody named Dumb Knee Biba says, fuck Israel, fuck Bibi, fuck Javier, fuck the Jewish supremacy. Yeah. All forms of supremacy. They doubled down the dead Lincoln, said, happy Friday. Here's a deadbeat, fugly, stinking Lincoln, total faggot, deserved to get blasted and solve his own status or statue up, that homo, including the Yankees. Ban the ADL. Peace. Keep up the good work. What a shekel chat. Yeah, fuck Lincoln. We cannot get through a show, and it doesn't matter what the topic is, without people saying fuck Lincoln. So I love it, because that's how it ought to be. Let's see. We got those. All right. Entropy. There's one they said I don't have to read, but says, I'll catch the rest tomorrow. It's 3 a.m. here. Have a good one, Rye. Ice cream for the boys. No need to read. Thank you, dude. And then Sal, Hisashi Booty, by the way, long time no see, says, free America from Zog. Israel did 9/11. Keep up the good work, buddy. Coming to Japan in October. Sweet. I'm also going to be in Japan in October. You're lucky, because I don't live there anymore. I live in Korea now, but I will be there for a little while in October. Got to go do some more calendar shoots. All right, let's get back to it.
Same people serve on multiple boards, a media company and a weapons company. I have actually mapped this out on a physical map. I took the time to do that.
Have you included BlackRock in there? Like, does BlackRock make an appearance in there?
BlackRock and Vanguard aren't on the boards of directors. They hold the largest minority shares of everything.
Hmm. But
So
when did
it's a
they come onto the scene? Have they been around forever, or did they come around
No,
recently?
they've not been around forever, but
Hmm.
there has always been something like that. Like you could go all the way back to the East India Tea Company or something. There's always been some megalithic corporation. Like I call BlackRock the modern East India Tea Company, or the
Okay.
modern Dutch tea, because this corporate entity that is so big and so rich that it has total influence over this government. In fact, the tea companies had more money than the state at one point, more than the crown. And so that that's a little bit. I mean, BlackRock and Vanguard operate differently. They manage other people's money, but it's a bottleneck where a lot of the Sunborn Institute types have their money. And they were in Twitter, they're in all the social media. They're like you look at something, and the top two are them. And Larry Fink is woke, and that's where you get your ESGs, and it's a phenomenon as well. So way beyond Lincoln, because they start controlling the press in other states. Out of that.
All right, now let's ask the big question: why did all this happen?
To
It
replace
wasn't
the
the
Cold
Patriot
War.
Act. Yeah.
No, that was a little
Ukraine.
piece of it. No, yeah, it was the Cold War had ended, Soviet Union had fallen apart, it collapsed, and
You
the
need a new
war on
boogeyman.
terror. Yeah, the war on terror replaces the Cold War to justify trillion-dollar budgets.
And as we progress, it became ISIS, and then it became COVID. And what's next?
It looks like COVID 2.0, but I don't think it's going to work. I mean, actually, COVID ended because it became Ukraine season. Well, they got about a month of soldiers left, and they're going to have to negotiate. So
Oh, you think so?
they also need, yeah, the DIA just admitted that. I mean, they could get mercenaries, they could finesse it, they could drag it out through the winter. I hope not. I don't want any more people to die pointlessly, but
Well, are they going to fake a NATO ally attack to keep this going?
they could do it. They could do another 9/11 type thing, or blow up a
If they
nuclear
got a month,
power
if they got
plant
a
in
month left,
Zaporozhye.
let's call it now. Let's call it now. Like in 60 days, there's going to be a big pivot to keep this
Suddenly,
thing
yeah,
going.
suddenly the power plant goes kaboom, or they
On
like
NATO
sinking
land.
boats. Yeah, a NATO boat sinks off Crimea or something, whatever. Another Gulf of Tonkin, another incident like that. He tried to do that in the Strait of Hormuz. If you remember, in 2006 or 7, and a whistleblower on the boat said no, no one fired at us. They tried. So I don't know, because why do you want to go to war with Russia? You're gonna lose. You're
Me
almost out of
personally, will.
ammo. No, not you. I mean, well, yeah, you definitely lose in a war with Russia by yourself. But it's
Yeah.
do they really want that? Because they thought the sanctions were going to work a lot better than they did, and they thought their military plan would work a lot better than they did. It's not working at all. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are out of action. It's horrible. It was preventable. It was foreseeable. It didn't matter. Pepe Escobar and I were talking about it in 2014. Like, this is going to be war. I remember Justin Raimondo writing about it 2018 or 19. He was saying, this is the next huge theater. It's going to be in Ukraine. It's going to be over the Donbass.
Well, I think
Right again.
Crimea kind of let people start thinking that was going to come. And of course, Ukraine kept.
What I mean, is it
attacking.
really surprised that Crimea went back to Russia after you walled up dozens of counter protesters in Odessa and burned them alive?
Oh,
Every
wow.
ethnic Russian was saying, yeah, I'm voting on the referendum to join the Russian Federation. Plus, they had a
Okay,
base
so
there. So, I mean, it wasn't like they invaded, like killing people and stuff. They had a referendum. It's like over 90-something% voted to join Russia. Obviously, it had been Russian from 1776 until 1954. The people there speak Russian, identify with Russia. Many of them had been born in Russia. Anybody born before 1954, Russian. They were born in Russia. Khrushchev gives it to Ukraine in 54. That's where he was from. And, and then 2014 it goes back to Russia. But you have to understand that Ukraine was 15 billion euros in debt. They have been bombing Donetsk and Luhansk. They have been killing ethnic Russians in the Donbass. About 13 to 14,000 dead. And Crimea is like, we're going in. We don't need to side with you. You oligarchs do nothing for us. You rob us blind. It was an easy choice. And the Donbass, same thing. They were separatists, and Russia said no. And they said, well, we want to be an independent state. And finally, in 2022, they recognized them as independent states very briefly. And we use like less than half a year, they just go ahead and get absorbed into the Russian Federation along with the Zaporozhye front. So, hey, and they've been recognized by Syria and I think North Korea, like 2 other countries. But, you know, the reason people don't recognize a state or not has not to do with the merit. It's just U.S. pressure. That's it. But
now, did this
you
carry
can't
over with?
attack civilians with an army and expect them to stay part of your country.
No.
Ukraine attacked the Donbass for 8 years in a row and broke the Minsk Accord, refused the first one, broke the second one, Minsk 2 from Belarus. They took heavy artillery in February and fired it into an elementary school. And their prime minister, because they have a prime minister and a president, gets on TV and said, our children will be going to school. Their children will be cowering in the basements in fear.
Oh, wow.
And then they fire on an elementary school. And the Donbass starts trying to fire back and pleading for Russia for help. And, you know, they've cooked up this NATO force, NATO train. They're moving in. Ukraine was going to invade. And Russia said, padao. We're ready for your sanctions. They'd made a basket of currency. They'd shored up their allies with the Chinese. And they're like, the only way we lose this is economically. And Putin had been preparing for that probably since 2008, since Georgia and the Chechen wars and so on, even further back. So when the sanctions didn't work, that made the military campaign fail because Russia doesn't have to charge into a porcupine and get Pyrrhic victories going in, fighting, you know, well-trenched, bunkered, defendable positions. Instead, since the clock's on their side, they can sit back and just make it rain artillery all day and just do this slow meat grinder approach instead of the blitzkrieg approach. Blitzkrieg's because National Socialists did not have the clock on their side. They're running out of fuel and they needed to gain territory and get it quick. Russia has all the resources. Their economy's fine. They have them outranged, so they can just sit there. It's not a fast way to do it, but it's how you kill them and they don't kill you. Sit back and make it rain. And it's forced the Ukrainians to charge into the Russian defense lines, right into minefields, and they are just getting punked, starched. They can't even reach the first proper defense line. They haven't found an answer to this combination of landmines and artillery fire. The electronic warfare is knocking out the drones. They've blown up their fixed-wing aircraft and airfields. They're running out of 155 millimeter artillery and anti-air defense. So Russia rules the sky, and the queen of the chessboard has been artillery in this war. It's not tanks, it's artillery. So it's sad. Ukraine is going to lose.
Got a month left.
About a month worth of soldiers left. I mean, they could start pressing their refugees to return, force them into service, and really drag this out to the spring or whatever. But they're going to lose this war. Sucks.
No, it's meant to. Now, what's the outcome once they lose it?
They're going to lose all that territory.
That's the design. All of Ukraine, not even half of it. Just all of it.
No, they're going to lose. They're going to lose the Donbass, and they're going to lose part of Kherson and Zaporozhye. Right? Maybe everything up to the Dnieper River. Who knows?
That's what it looks like. Like if you look at it,
yeah, it looks like it. It looks like that's Putin's choice because they're not going to have anything. There's no leverage to negotiate.
Right, and that's the way it looked at from the beginning. Like I'm not going to say I'm a negotiator, but when you looked at the map and you looked what Russia was really concerned about, it was on the east side of Ukraine. And,
Yeah, where the ethnic Russians were getting attacked. Right.
And then you just look at geographically and historically. Oop, lost him for a second there. When you look at it geographically, the river made a natural border. Like that might have been a good place to make it. And Kiev is still on the west side of that, so they wouldn't have had the capital.
Yeah, they're going to lose Kharkiv though, and that's their second biggest city. I don't think Russia wants Western Ukraine because everyone there hates them, and they would just have like a 50-year insurgency and a headache, and it's not governable. But they're going to get the Donbass, where the people wanted to join Russia, voted to join Russia. All that territory is Russian now. And they'll have a buffer zone to go all the way to the river, and that'll be the natural border. And they'll do a little mirrored situation like the U.S. and Cuba, and say, don't even fucking flinch or you're getting the hammer again. It gets the hose again. And Ukraine is going to be turned into almost a nothing state. They need to hold on to Odessa because if they lose their major port city, they're going to end up a landlocked nation in Europe. And that doesn't work.
No. You need friends if you do that, and they're not very friendly. Now, what about the political system in Ukraine? There's some Nazi roots there. Are they going to survive? Are they going to get cleaned out? What's going to happen there?
Yeah, they're Nazis. They have all the Nazi symbols. There's so much hardcore anti-Russian, more than anti-Jew. This one's full on. They saran wrapping people to telephone poles and stripping them and taping them and beating them and paint their faces green and calling them orcs. And it's an anti-Russian campaign. You have your Stefan Bandera types and all, but it's not just Azov and right sector and all of that. Like, Ukrainians hate Russians. They've been raised that way in school. They have legitimate grievances with Holodomor and the Soviet occupation and all. But the thing is, so do the Russians. I mean, they suffered under communism just as much as Ukraine. They also died from Stalin's policies and starved and all the same things. It wasn't a product of their DNA. It's not like, oh, they're Russian, so that's what Russians do. It was the government that did that. But a lot of people don't, they're collectivists and they think, oh, what the Russians did. Well, that happened to the Russians too. So they hate them. And they're very jealous too, because most of the, outside of Kiev, most of the infrastructure and wealth was in the east. And so they really don't like those ethnic Russians over there anyway. But, it was hard because with the fall of the Soviet Union also hurt, just like ending slavery. Wasn't easy. Abolition hurt because you had all these unskilled people that just ended up sharecropping and starving. And it was hard. You had the fall of the Soviet Union, but now what? You have hyperinflation. People are turning to prostitution, selling themselves. It was a big, brain drain. People leaving the country because there's a total economic collapse. So, the fall of communism sucks, but it wasn't a smooth transition. Like, oh, we're just on our honor going to have venture capitalists come in here and fix everything. No, they ended up with a bunch of oligarchs. Someone else.
I love that, Bell.
Well, that's if you look at the oligarchs, it sounds like the Carol of the Bells, which I believe is a song from Ukraine. The Christmas.
It all comes back to that. I don't know that song.
Carol, ding, 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 ding. That's what it sounds like.
Oh, right, from Christmas Carol.
But audience can check that. I think that's a Ukrainian song originally.
All right, fact check it, audience. Go ahead, chat. Fact check that. Well, Ryan, that went by quick, so we're already at the 2-hour mark.
I got to do a Twitter space, so I got to bounce. That was great.
No problem.
Good interview. Solid.
I was going to let you know. Yeah, thank you very much, Ryan. It was a great time, and we'll talk to you later. And if you want to be connected to Jeremy, just hit me in a DM, and I'll.
I have his Skype. But yeah,
he's awesome. He was in the chat today. He's a fan. Yeah. And I think if you guys could work together on something, he's got something juicy.
He gets a ginger pass.
No problem. He gets one. Thank you very much, Ryan. You have yourself a great day. Enjoy that Spaces. So anybody that's listening right now,
we're gonna talk. Adam Fitzgerald, myself. Unfortunately, Thermal Detonator couldn't join, but we're gonna be getting in the nitty gritty and pissing off the kooks. So come over for some more. See you.
There you go, everybody. Yeah, go ahead, go to X, go find that space and enjoy it. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. You have yourself a great day. And thanks for getting up early.
Diagolon.
Take care, brother.
We'll end that intellectual conversation with the cocaine sniffing goat. Peace.
Yeah, you'll like Philip. He's pretty cool. And there's a Phyllis now. Oh, he's gone. But there's a Phyllis now too. So maybe he'll get to meet her. Well, there you go. There's Ryan Dawson and Jeremy. If you're listening, hook up. He's a really nice guy. I'm sure he would love to chat with you. You're a great guy too. So hook the two of you up. And yeah, it would be great if somebody could put together a bit of a documentary on what you're doing, working on there, Jeremy. So, but thank you very much for the Rumble rant. Thanks for being in the chat, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, Jeremy's been on the show a few times. I've been on his show as well, and we're due for some McKinsey. I actually I did the fundraiser. I chugged an entire bottle of Jack Daniels to raise them $600, and yeah, didn't drink after that for a while. Looking at Entropy, looking at Rumble, see what I've missed. I got the Happy Friday thing. Beat Lincoln with a cactus. Keep them coming. By the way, if you see that support our films thing, that's the QR code. If you can't donate, you can send a prayer. And when you write the prayer, it gives you an opportunity to just trash Lincoln. And so that's a way. It shows support, and it's just hilarious because at the end of this, I'm going to read all of those. So you can write it with your donation, or you can just write it with the prayer, or you can send a donation and then send a prayer, or you can send prayers every day. They're free. So it's just like a way to comment. But you can send an actual prayer, obviously. But I think it's perfectly fine. In addition to that, to saying PSF Lincoln, because he's definitely in hell. That's where he came from, after all. Let's see. Yeah, we shot up to 600 suddenly, so somebody must have shared this. Maybe it was McKinsey. We'll see. But if you missed it, I guess we talked about Ukraine the last few minutes, but it started off with Iraq and then 9/11, and of course there's that base Jiggly commercial. Do you guys want to see that again? Hit Y for yes, P for pass if you want to see it. I'll just play a little bit of it, but if that's something if you think you can stomach that again, I think this is going to delineate right along male and female, but we'll have that in there. Let's see if boom, there it is. Yeah, up to you. I'll see the chat. We have some yeses. Diagonal, by the way, if you don't understand what that is, it's someone just noticed the base parts of the United States and Canada go in a diagonal line. So from Alaska and Alberta through the Midwest and the old Confederate South is all the red states, you could say. We're having overwhelming Ys. All right, why not? Sure. Yeah, again, Rumble can't handle the jiggling. That frog should have been faster, and those tatas should have been bouncing smoother. Whatever. It is a special thing I made for Ian Hess for being a Chad donor. Got some popping shekel chats there at the end. From starting with, whoa, missed a few. Tac P Ness says, get Getter. Tons more folks can reach you very easily. I was already banned off Getter. So, hey, why not? Get it, use it if you can, but I am not allowed on there. So talk a little bit too much truth, maybe. Dog Shit Poster 69 says, how much of the official Jesus, dude. How much of the official Holocaust narrative actually happened? I've heard some people say that it was only 144,000 in Auschwitz, and that Auschwitz had a movie theater. How accurate are these claims? Okay, Auschwitz did have a theater. They also had a swimming pool. A lot more than 144,000 people died. I think you're missing a zero there. I'm not getting into the Holocaust. It's too big a topic. You paid $5, pay 50, then I'll do it. Lucas Rowdy 57 for the Dead Lincoln says, Ryan, my friend, is a big fan of no. Oh, your friend's a big fan of Ben Shapiro. You're missing a comma in that sentence. He's a big fan of Ben Shapiro. Will you please explain why he's a warmonger and a Zionist? Ben Shapiro supported every war there ever was. He said that Arabs don't build things, that they're filthy animals. He is a Zionist. Ben Shapiro looks good bashing low-hanging fruit when he's arguing with high school kids about identity politics and wage gap and stuff like that. But he doesn't do so well when he talks to adults. He got his clock cleaned by Tucker Carlson and who was the British journalist, Neil something another. He doesn't do well when he talks to adults. The guy's a religious zealot, and he's a staunch supporter of Israel. So, of course, he supported all of Israel's wars, Iraq, Syria, all the invasions, etc. He's a warmonger. Now, I would agree with Shapiro on the identity politics stuff, except for he's an identitarian himself. So as much as he can make fun of the alphabet people, the mentally retarded, essentially, he's also an identitarian because he identifies himself as a Jew. He thinks Israel is a Jewish state, and therefore criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic because Israel is the Jews, which is, in fact, collectivist thinking and anti-Semitic itself. Dom Nibba sends 5 and says, bro, nope, not reading that. You started the sentence with bro. I hate that word. I hate that millennial crap. But okay, fine. I've seen your arguments on Twitter about blacks being the first Brits. Holy shit, this was taking We Was Kings theory to another level. I do not argue that blacks were not the first Brits. That's based on a single study in 2018, February, about the Cheddar Man. It didn't even last a month before it got debunked. They found someone with blue eyes and dark skin. There was no genetic evidence for dark skin. They have no idea what skin color these people had. But given that everybody with blue eyes is white, unless they're mixed with whites, then probably had white skin, because that's part of selective sexual selection. Brits, way back when, were even paler. And Cro-Magnons were all redheads, by the way. Let's see. And they did the same thing with the Kinswick man. They're like, oh, maybe the first Native American was actually European. We have this remains from 9,000 years ago, and they tested it. Nope, it was Native American. Plus, that wouldn't have been the first, because natives come from 20,000 years ago, Clovis culture from 15,000 years ago. So the 9,000-year-old guy, even if he had been European, still wouldn't have been the first Americans anyway. But they made a big, all the white supremacists went nuts on that, going, see, you guys colonized Europeans. Nope, he was native. Black hair, big cheekbones, all that stuff. And now they're doing the same crap, and all these blacks and non-whites are going nuts, going, what about the Cheddar Man? Cheddar Man. Find me an article that's not from February 2018 about Cheddar Man. Because all of it went then, and by March, they were like, yeah, oops, it wasn't what we said. And this is just what the British press does. I don't know why people are so goddamn obsessed with race, but they are. One thing they don't want to look at, though, is who are the original people of the Levant, because it's not the Hebrew. All right, let's see. Somebody named okay sends in 20, says thanks for your service and fuck Lincoln. I agree. KGB Josh for Dead Lincoln says, May Lincoln and John Marshall rest in hell. Yeah, throw in John McCain too. Let's see. RM Jim Zeus, not getting by without a dead Lincoln. The ungovernable appearance, and they send a Rumble link. So yeah, I was on ungovernable. I think that was like an all-day thing. I swear I saw a larger one. Yeah, there we go. Here's some. The real Kia with a dead Ulysses. May he rest in hell too. Says, hey, Ride Dog, I reposted your stellar 9/11 tribute on my Getter, and David Zier reposted it. You should really reach out to him about remaking the movie. Which 9/11 tribute? War by Deception, or I don't know which. One of my 9/11 videos they shared apparently. I don't know how to reach him because I'm not allowed on Getter. They banned me. So someone would have to get him to contact my Twitter or Telegram or something. Can't use Parler, can't use Getter. I wasn't allowed on Twitter till this year. Banned on Patreon, banned on PayPal, banned on Facebook, banned on Instagram, banned on YouTube, banned on Vimeo, banned from Coinbase, banned from Teasley, banned from Teespring. What else? Banned on Streamlabs payments, banned on Stream Elements, banned on Discord. Basically banned on everything except VK, Telegram, recently Twitter, Rumble, and Odyssey, and Substack. Everything else, anything major, we've been banned on, including Getter. I tried Getter. I tried True Social too. It didn't. Look, you're not allowed to talk about Israel. The ADL gets into everything, new, old, whatever. And if you're accurate, they'll get rid of you. And I know I'm on a list. I've been blanket banned. I got blanket banned before Alex Jones, before the Tates, before the little 30-pound pedophile advocate. You know who he is. Before any of those people get banned. Before that guy was even born, I was getting banned. It sucks. I was banned from AOL. I was banned from MySpace. I got kicked out of... I lost my email. I lost my Bluehost. Banned me. I got banned on... so many different clothing companies and stuff. Payment processors wouldn't even allow me to join. Got kicked off Stripe. Got kicked off or disapproved, whatever. I have to use Asian banks and Asian everything. So, but if you can reach them out on Getter, I have a Twitter and I have a Telegram. I have an email also. It's on the website. You can reach me that way. But I'd love to collaborate with anybody who wants to. Got to get this information out there. All right, checking entropy. It's at a standstill from Sal. Checking power chat. Last one was Ian Hess. Gave me a way to contact him. All right, I'll be doing that soon. We're going to be talking about 9/11 some more tomorrow. I'm going to play the one with Fitzgerald. And some callers got in there. It's pretty good. And then there's a third one that had call-ins with a bunch of nasty kooks and stuff. I'm going to play that also just so you can see the kind of crap I deal with all day long with the missile tards and stuff. They're like, if you don't say controlled demolition, you're a government shill. Rah, 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 rah. Like I just told you, they sabotaged the fire prevention system and had truck bombs. That's not good enough. You need a bomb on every floor with your mini nukes and holograms and nanothermite. Terrible. Yeah, No, I'm not the most banned person. The most banned person are people that either got killed or thrown in jail, like Julian Assange, Gary Webb. People have been exiled, like Ed Snowden. I've been banned on a lot of stuff. And maybe I would have been jailed if I'd stayed in the U.S. I don't know, but there are a lot of people who had it worse than me. And there are people who are banned on everything. Dr. Duke's banned on everything. Probably. And you know what? That's not breaking the rules. But what the stuff he says, it's just they hate that so much. But I think free speech means even ugly opinions should be allowed to say them. Dog shit poster 69 says, I saw that you have a LinkedIn account. Oh, that's not mine. They said, how are you allowed on LinkedIn? Also, didn't even know it was possible to get banned on MySpace. Yeah, that's not my LinkedIn. Somebody just made that. I cannot get rid of it. I've tried writing them and stuff. Somebody put up a YouTube I found too. I mean, that's not me. Anything that you see my videos on there, whatever, it's not me. There is an iTunes that's not mine, but it's not unknown. It was an ANC employee created it, and I told him go ahead. So I got banned off that too. But the second one seems to be lasting because we don't ever promote it or tell anybody it exists. And I think there's a fan site on Spotify too. That's not officially mine either. I never got kicked off that. I just never even, I was like, they're going to kick me off. So I didn't even bother with it. But that's there. Some of the new stuff, like locals, I just didn't bother with it. I'm like, that's why. Why put all the effort in when you're going to be gone within 2 weeks anyway? Yeah, look, we know from Twitter files that spooks were in these things, and we know the ADL works with all these organizations, and they remove whoever they want. And given my videos about September 11th and my films about how the Israeli state created itself out of terrorists, and then NUMEC, how they stole nuclear weapons and nuclear material from the United States, yeah, I'm not going to be loud on there. I've gone ham on the ADL too. We had Jeff Blankford on. We talked about them spying on police stations, the fact that they aided terrorists like Irv Rubin from the JIDF that went around, attacking people, tried to bomb a mosque in California, a terrorist. The ADL backs them up. The ADL has backed up organized crime, and we've done a woodshed on them. Thing is, not a lot of people heard that. I'll do it again because when I did it, we weren't allowed on any platforms. So I'd love to have a getter back. I have a Gab, but I never use it. Never banned from there. They're pretty good on free speech. The thing is, the audience is so toxic because all these groyper retards. So it's not even worth it. Like every other post is Hitler memes and stuff. It's disgusting. All right, we'll be back with more 9/11 content. Props to EMS. I'm going to jump over on Telegram. It is Saturday over here in Asia, so it's time to do dad stuff. And Scott Dawson, my twin, is coming on. We're going to talk about Lee's campaign through Maryland and get that recorded for Dawson University. Looking to launch that now that 9/11 week's over. Something we can deal with. And I'll be doing a video on the Tates shortly. It's my next project. I'll get that done by the end of the week. So we'll sign off with Donald Trump.
Okay, next question. What is it, CNN? You want a question? Are you a piece of shit? Yes, you are. Next question. MSNBC? Fuck yourself. WAPO? Why isn't your hand raised, WAPO? Was I mean to you? Was I mean to you? Did Russia show up at your house, WAPO? It's okay. You can go home and cry on your dick-shaped pillow. Next question.